Chapter 1026, The Pool in the Space. After the tea trees sprouted, Xianxia planned to gradually replenish the scattered seeds. The previously planted tea trees had been harvested this year, thanks to Manager Mu's efficient arrangements. With the assistance of Shao and Ding Erju and his wife, the tea leaves were successfully produced and sold, causing quite a stir in the provincial city. Shao, as usual, kept the source of the exquisite tea a secret, leaving the tea merchants perplexed and eventually giving up their inquiries. As long as they could obtain the goods and verify their authenticity, they were satisfied. As for how long they could maintain this secrecy, time would tell. Delighted by the success, Xianxia discussed with Shao Yunduan and decided to purchase an additional 1,000 mu of land in Jianghu village, intending to gradually establish a larger tea house. With the vast expanse of Great Qin, the demand for tea leaves was insatiable every year. The higher the quality of the tea leaves, the more sought after they became. Even if the supply increased in the future and the prices of golden sprouts and lavender decreased, the tea house would still yield substantial profits. It was a venture that wouldn't go wrong. Such exceptional tea leaves deserved recognition and appreciation from around the world. Xianxia carefully stored away the tea tree as well. As they were preparing to leave, Ding Erju presented Xianxia and the others with more fish and prawns from the pond, urging them to take them back home. Xianxia attempted to transfer the prawns into the intermediate pool within the space, but to her surprise they ended up in there too. Overjoyed, she couldn't contain her excitement. This was even better. It meant that in the future fish and prawns could be self-sufficient. Upon returning home, Xianxia went to the backyard to assess the situation. She scooped up mandarin fish, eel, Chinese perch, carp and other fish from the pool and placed them in the designated fish pond within her space. To her surprise, the pool in the space automatically split into two sections, a pristine spring pool and a fish pond. The fish and prawns she transferred entered the designated area seamlessly. Xianxia couldn't help but feel amazed at the incredible functionality of the space. She pondered whether this meant that during her travels to different locations, aside from collecting various crops, fruit trees, flowers and herbs, she could also gather local fish, prawns and other aquatic products. If the seafood space could accommodate them, she would be overjoyed. Later that night, Xianxia prepared a delicious feast. The menu included tea-flavored prawns, stir-fried eel shreds, fish and goat pot, steamed meat with lotus leaves, stir-fried shredded bamboo shoots, garlic eggplant, century egg mixed with tofu, stir-fried wolfberry sprouts and asparagus slices. Today Ms.Yan delivered tofu along with smoked bean jerky, oil skin and deep-fried tofu, which they planned to enjoy the next day. It wouldn't be appropriate to invite Ms.Yan for dinner alone, so they decided to invite her to join them for a barbecue in a few days. Ever since Xianxia and Shao Yunduan returned home, the house had been bustling with activity, and Ms.Yan often came to lend a helping hand. Although she appeared ordinary, she possessed remarkable intelligence, poise and organizational skills, earning praise from everyone. Behind closed doors, Ms. Fang secretly felt sorry for Ms. Niu and second uncle. Fortunately, the Yan family was also prosperous. With their thriving bean product business, they were making substantial profits. It was rumored that they planned to build a large house and courtyard by the end of the year and acquire some fields. With such backing, Ms. Niu dared not flaunt her status as the mother-in-law. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1027, Two Faces. It was amusing that when Xianxia accompanied Shao Yunduan to the capital for the examination, Ms. Niu and second uncle were constantly making sarcastic remarks from outside. They would mock the first branch of the family for their recklessness, questioning how they could allow Xianxia, a woman, to venture out with a man. Or perhaps they wanted to take the examination themselves. They believed it would bring bad luck if a woman joined them. It was already surprising enough that she wanted to participate in the examination at all. While others might not have been familiar with Shao Yunduan's character and abilities, they were from the same village. Being an intermediate recommended candidate was already an impressive achievement. It was like being an advanced incense burner. The intermediate provincial champion had been a stroke of luck and happenstance. Becoming an advanced scholar was no easy feat in the vast realm of Great Qin. Numerous scholars and young talents hailed from scholarly and prestigious families. They had been groomed for greatness from a young age, so naturally they were more accomplished than Shao Yunduan. As for Shao Yunduan, it would be best for him to abandon such thoughts to avoid disappointment. When these words reached the first branch of the Shao family, Ms. Fang sneered and pretended not to hear them. She maintained control over the family, forbidding any internal disputes regarding this matter. If someone dared to bring it up in front of them, they would retaliate, saying, "If you hold such contempt for my brother, why don't your children stop attending the school that he sponsors?" The person in question was taking advantage of others and resorting to snide remarks. It was evident that they had ulterior motives. However, since Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan were not present at home, Ms. Fang decided not to involve herself and dismissed the matter. Furthermore, arguing with others would be futile. They had to rely on Xiao Yunduan's performance. Once Xiao Yunduan achieved success in the examination, his family would be proud and prove those detractors wrong. If he failed to qualify for the intermediate examination, what would be the point of engaging in arguments at this stage? Naturally, Ms. Fang didn't pay much attention even if her son didn't pass the intermediate examination. Ms. Niu and second uncle were correct about one thing. There were numerous scholars throughout the entire Duqing kingdom, so it was not uncommon for their son to have failed the intermediate exam twice. However, their choice of words was distasteful and unpleasant. On the other hand, Ms. Fang had immense faith in her son. She firmly believed in his capabilities and was convinced that he would undoubtedly succeed in the intermediate examination. To their astonishment, Xiao Yunduan emerged as the top scorer. The top scorer. He ranked first among all the scholars. How many individuals could claim such a distinction? Only one. When the news arrived from County Magistrate Xiao, Ms. Fang couldn't contain her joy. She was left speechless, and the entire first branch of the Shao family was overwhelmed with excitement. The land officer and the elders in the family were moved to tears. They showered him with endless praise and promptly opened the ancestral hall to announce this momentous news. Consequently, the first branch of the Shao family became the most esteemed family in the village. Nobody dared to harbor jealousy toward them anymore. Those who were envious were simply unworthy of such feelings. Conversely, many people began to admire their family. He was the illustrious primus. Now that he held an official position, he might even rise to become a high-ranking official in the future. Thus, when Ms. Fang encountered Ms. Niu on one occasion, she taunted her with an air of arrogance, leaving Ms. Niu so infuriated that she departed without uttering a word. Unexpectedly, both Ms. Niu and second uncle displayed shamelessness by pleading with eldest uncle. They admitted their wrongdoing, expressed their reluctance to cause any further trouble, and vowed to respect their elder brother. They humbly implored him to restore familial harmony as it had been before. Ms. Niu slapped her own face and scolded herself for what she had done wrong and for turning over a new leaf. Second Unli burst into tears and said that it was all his fault in the past, and now he knew that he was wrong. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1028, Reject. Eldest uncle couldn't bear to witness his parents crying and begging before him. In a moment of impulse, he agreed to their request. But as he began to express this to Ms. Fang, she interrupted him with a cold smile. "So, you're using Yun Duan's reputation as the primus to do favors for such a heartless person. You truly embody the role of Yun Duan's biological father. Just take a look at their faces if Yun Duan hadn't made it into the intermediate exam. Don't pretend you didn't hear anything." Eldest uncle furrowed his brow, torn and conflicted. He wasn't angered by Ms. Fang's reprimand. Instead, he let out a sigh and spoke, I understand. But Yunduan has already reached the intermediate level, right? Second brother and the others won't dare to repeat their actions. They merely wish to salvage their reputation." "Yes, they're not merely seeking to salvage their reputation," Ms. Fang sneered. "They also want to continue their bullying." Eldest uncle choked on his words. "Well, you can't. It's not up to you," Ms. Fang retorted coldly. "When the time comes, what will you do? Let me make it clear, I won't allow you to use Yunduan's name for this purpose. You'll have to wait for Yunduan's return. You can ask him yourself. If he agrees, I won't object. But if he disagrees, don't even think about it." In my opinion, Ms. Niu and her husband are two-faced and deceitful. They are excessively greedy. With the support of the Yin family, their two sons are working there and earning a considerable amount of money. Shouldn't they be satisfied? What more do they want? Ms. Fang had worked hard to distance herself from the second branch of the family, and she had no intention of allowing them to enter her home and spew nonsense. She reveled in her freedom and refused to acknowledge their existence. To do so would only invite disaster. Eldest uncle grew slightly irritated. "Yunduan listens to you at all. If you want to ask him, go ahead and ask him yourself." But Ms. Fang had no intention of allowing that. Then why don't you reflect on why Yunduan listens to me? Look at what you've done. You're truly praiseworthy. Just ask Dalong, Sanlang, Qi Taotao. None of them have any fondness for Ms. Niu and her husband. Not only did the second branch of the family wish to break away, but they even contemplated severing ties with the third branch. You. Eldest uncle grew even angrier. Ms. Fong sneered in response. Yunduan is the primus and he has the final say in our family. Don't bother running to the land officer and the rest of the family. It's futile. If Yunduan doesn't agree, they'll disregard you. If you truly have no regard for our family and are so heartless, then let's divorce and divide the family. You can go with Ms. Niu and her husband. With those biting words, Ms. Fong stormed off angrily, paying no heed to eldest uncle's thoughts. She was genuinely infuriated. Didn't he understand the true nature of the second branch of the family? He did. Yet he remained soft-hearted. His heart softened, clouding his judgment. He dared to engage in all sorts of shameless acts. She saw right through him. Ms. Fong grew so exasperated that she visited Ms. Niu and second uncle's home the next day, accompanied by her two daughters-in-law. She openly taunted the couple, leaving them greatly vexed. Ms. Niu wished to scold her, but she didn't dare, resulting in her blushing with anger. It was quite amusing to Ms. Fong as well. She had been seething with anger, searching for an outlet to vent, and now she found herself venting it on Ms. Yan. But was Ms. Yan someone who would tolerate such mistreatment? She hadn't done anything wrong, so she couldn't fathom listening to Ms. Niu's insults and weeping to the point where she sought solace at her mother's house. Ms. Niu was so anxious that she couldn't prevent her departure at all. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1029, Not Easily Offended. The following day the entire Yan family, including Ms. Yan's parents, brothers and sisters-in-law, arrived at the doorstep, causing Ms. Niu to tremble in fear, hiding away in her room and refusing to come out. However, she couldn't avoid the Yan family's presence. Unlike Ms. Zhang's family in the past, the Yan family didn't create a scene and approached the situation with reasonableness. Mr. Yan asked Ms. Niu what she had done wrong. What were her mistakes? She also acknowledged that her family held some responsibility, and it would be best if they could point out their errors so that they could guide Ms. Yan in the right direction. After all, Ms. Yan was their daughter and they would never abandon her. Nevertheless, this matter couldn't be postponed any further. As it stood, only the Yan family had come today. Shao Erlang and Shao Xilang were still diligently working at the tofu store's workshop, unaffected by the situation. It had to be acknowledged that the Yan family possessed remarkable tact. They took this opportunity to mention Shao Erlang and Shao Xilang. Ms. Niu and second uncle were dumbfounded. Truly, the Yan family was extraordinarily magnanimous. Their business thrived, and the salaries they provided to Shao Erlang and Shao Xilang continued to increase. Each of them now earned 5 liang per month, totaling 8 liang combined. In the past, their family couldn't save such a substantial amount of money in an entire year, but now they could achieve it in just 1 month. Without this income, Ms. Niu would go insane, let alone second uncle. Second uncle grew increasingly anxious, even praising Ms. Yan while reprimanding Ms. Niu. Ms. Niu felt a mix of anger and fear, but she had no choice but to admit her mistakes. She forced a smile and claimed that she had been so infuriated that she uttered a few thoughtless words to Ms. Yan, but they shouldn't be taken seriously. Mrs. Yan couldn't be easily deceived. Under her persistent questioning, Ms. Niu had no choice but to change her words and admit that she didn't just make casual remarks but had actually scolded Ms. Yan. She also made a promise that it would never happen again. The elderly couple from the Yan family scolded Ms. Yan once more and instructed her not to throw tantrums in the future. Ms. Yan agreed, and thus the matter was resolved. After having lunch at second uncle's house, second uncle asked Ms. Niu and Ms. Yan to prepare chicken and steam-cured meat for the guests, and the Yan family returned home. As soon as the Yan family arrived back, Ms. Niu glared at Ms. Yan, but second uncle immediately pulled her away. He gave her a warning and Ms. Niu realized what was going on. Annoyed and frightened, she dared not throw another tantrum at Ms. Yan. She truly couldn't afford to offend her daughter-in-law. Speaking of which, Ms. Niu and second uncle failed to reconcile with the first section of the family and became the subject of mockery by many villagers. Aware of Ms. Yan's close relationship with the first section of the family, they hoped that Ms. Yan would intervene on their behalf. However, Ms. Yan politely declined their request. Aunt and sister-in-law, the respect they have for me is based on my own merit. I can't dare to meddle in such matters. If I can't even control Uncle's words, how can I wield such influence? It wouldn't be good if Aunt and the others became angry with me as well. Ms. Nyo and second uncle were left feeling helpless. Ms. Nyo's fury only intensified. What kind of family is this? Which daughter-in-law wields so much power that I, as the mother-in-law, can't even say anything to her? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1030. She's so precious. What do you mean by right or wrong? Do you think your daughter-in-law can argue with her mother-in-law? Look at other families, the mother-in-law is always right. Find a daughter-in-law for second brother and get him married, or I will make Ms. Yan furious. Second uncle shot her a stern look and snapped, "Shut up. You're the one who talks too much. Ms. Yan did nothing wrong, so why are you scolding her? I've told you that the Yan family is not to be messed with." Ms. Nyo remained unconvinced. So what if she did something wrong? I am her mother-in-law. So what if I scolded her for no reason? Which daughter-in-law doesn't feel unjustly treated? Which family doesn't have conflicts? She's too spoiled. She's too delicate. You. Enough. If you ruin second and fourth's relationship, do you think they won't blame you? Let's not discuss this further. Costs us money every month. Are you willing to bear that? Ms. Nyo didn't want to leave, so she didn't dare to offend Ms. Yan. Tell second brother that you're his daughter-in-law. Hurry up and let him know that you're his daughter-in-law. Otherwise we can't go on like this. Since then Ms. Nyo held a grudge against Ms. Yan, and Ms. Yan no longer made an effort to please Ms. Nyo as before. Ms. Yan finally understood and couldn't help but feel disheartened. Some people were simply like that. No matter how well you treated them, they wouldn't change. If that was the case, why should she continue trying to please her? As long as her own family was there, this mother-in-law couldn't do anything to her. In comparison, people like Elder Aunt were the best. Without a doubt, even if her third sister-in-law did not come from a wealthy family, Aunt still treated her well. If her third sister-in-law were to become her mother-in-law's daughter-in-law, she might not fare much better than her own brother and sister-in-law. When Shao Yunduan returned to the village to pay respects to his ancestors, Ms. Nyo and second Li, who had given up hope, felt a glimmer of excitement. Second Li pretended to be drunk and pleaded with Shao Yunduan in front of everyone, hoping to mend their relationship. Eldest uncle blushed and looked at Shao Yunduan with pleading eyes. Shao Yunduan casually responded, "Second Li is just talking nonsense after having too much to drink. Third brother, please help him rest. How can we involve the land officer, the chief, and the elders in making a decision? What does second Li think of our family?" Eldest uncle's face turned even redder. Shao Sanlang grew irritated. He nodded and instructed two men from their tribe to escort second Li away before anything else could be said. Shao Yunduan smiled at the land officer and the others, as if nothing had happened. He continued enjoying the food and drinks, and everyone followed suit with smiles. Soon the incident was forgotten and put behind them. Deep down everyone understood. Mr. Primus was indeed an exceptional scholar. He was steadfast in his principles and had a clear understanding of the situation. It was impossible to threaten him. It was clear that the fault lay with Mr. Primus. The Shao couple had crossed a line. Even before Mr. Primus' return, they had spread gossip about him. Their actions were unforgivable. Now it was too late for them to seek favor. Did they really believe that everyone should give in to their demands and let them do as they pleased? At this point, the second section of the family had lost all hope of reconciling with the first section of the family. During the banquet, Shao Miling and her husband, who were already married, also attended to offer their congratulations. The first section of the Shao family treated them like any other relatives, without any special treatment. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1031, Fighting? It was ridiculous that Shao Miling still hadn't realized her position. She felt neglected by the first section of the family, and her face darkened throughout the event. She had expected someone from the first section to acknowledge her after making such a scene. However, not even a servant like Chunyu bothered to pay her any attention. Chunyu simply pretended not to see her and warmly greeted other guests with a smile. Shao Miling felt even more aggrieved. She wanted to create a scene but didn't dare to do so on such a significant occasion. If she dared to cause trouble, the first section of the family would undoubtedly kick her out. That would be even more embarrassing. Furthermore, with Shao Yunduan as the primus, she felt a sense of fear. In frustration, Shao Meiling stomped her feet and returned home in a fit of anger, thinking that ignorance is bliss. Upon seeing her, Ms. Niu exclaimed, "What are you doing here? Did someone bully you?" Her expression hinted at causing trouble. Shao Meiling burst into tears and cried, "The first section of the family looks down on me. They all look down on me and ignore me." Ms. Niu cursed and sighed, "That family is so snobbish. They treat poor relatives with disdain once they achieve success. Don't feel wronged, it's not worth it. Let's go over there. If they don't care about us, let's eat more. It's better to feast until they're left with nothing." Meanwhile, Shao Meiling was extremely frustrated. When she returned to her in-laws' house, nosy women would inquire about the first section of the family. What could she possibly say? The tension between the two families was widely known in the village. She even suspected that the first section had deliberately spread the matter. This resulted in people offering sympathy, making snide remarks, and even her mother-in-law treating her in a similar manner. It was infuriating. Shao Meiling couldn't help but blame her parents. If it weren't for them, she wouldn't have ended up in this situation. Xiao Xian had her mind set on the expansive piece of land in the suburban province. With flourishing crops like longan, lychee, and mango, she eagerly wanted to visit the provincial city and take action. She requested Yuezhing Shao to arrange for someone to purchase seedlings from the south and start planting them. Time was of the essence. If she planted the seedlings and utilized her superpower, they would likely grow exceptionally well. Her plan was to return in mid-September or early October to check on these industries again. She would use her superpower to strengthen their growth and stay during the winter. If they managed to thrive successfully, it would bring peace of mind for the following year. After several years of employing her superpower consistently, once it reached a stable level and fully adapted to the local environment and climate, it would create a new breed. Even without relying on her superpower, the crops would likely grow, blossom, and bear fruit splendidly. This was the most desirable outcome. Xiao Xian had a strong belief that it could become a reality. Xiao Xian and Shao Yunduan decided that the entire family should accompany them to the province, making the trip lively. Shao Yunduan also agreed, recognizing the convenience of having a house in the province where they could stay. The whole family cheered up upon hearing their decision. The province was a distant place filled with prosperity, vibrancy, and an abundance of delicious food and exciting activities. Although they had been there once before, they longed to experience it again. The prospect of shopping brought great joy. "This time all of us will go. Eldest brother and sister-in-law will come along as well. Li Xiao and Li Qiu will stay behind to take care of the house." Xiao Xian's words delighted Chunyu and the others. Packing up was a simple task. They only needed a few sets of clothes. There was no need to bring anything else. They had everything they needed at their residence in the provincial city. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1032, Not Worthy. Miss Su had not been there the last time, but now she had the opportunity to go as well. She was filled with excitement, even playfully teasing her youngest son who was not even 1 year old. "You're so fortunate. Since your birth, you've never experienced any hardships. Now, you can accompany us to the provincial city and broaden your horizons." Coincidentally, Ms.Yan happened to visit them. As she observed Yang Xiaoni, Tao Tao, and Chunyu engaged in an enthusiastic discussion, envy couldn't help but creep into her heart. Having never been to the provincial city before, Ms.Yan desired to join them. She had heard from Tao Tao and the others about the liveliness and enjoyment one experienced upon returning to the provincial city, and her longing grew stronger. "When will I have the chance to go?" she wondered. Yang Xiaoni giggled and inquired, "Sister-in-law, is there anything you would like to purchase? Should I bring it back for you?" Ms. Yan smiled and replied, "Absolutely." After some deliberation, Ms. Yan began counting on her fingers. "I need some face cream. Please get me 5 portions. 1 for my mother and 2 for my sisters-in-law. Fifth sister-in-law, please help me select ones that are both effective and reasonably priced. Also, add 2 packets of silk thread. The silk threads available in the provincial city are finer and come in a wider range of colors. Additionally, buy me 3 or 4 pairs of exquisite silk flowers, and the current fashion favors ordinary gingham cloth for clothing. Bring me 5 of those as well, 2 for the elderly couple and 4 for the younger one. If you come across any delectable snacks or stir-fried preserves, please bring some back for me." Xianxia tallied the items on her fingers and smiled in agreement. Don't worry, I won't disappoint you. With fifth sister-in-law's good taste, I'm confident she'll choose the most suitable ones for you. Ms.Yan nodded, her smile widening. Absolutely. Curiosity got the better of Xianxia, and she couldn't help but ask, are you buying so many clothes for your father-in-law and mother-in-law? Ms.Yan pursed her lips and whispered under her breath, give it to them? I don't mind spending so much money, but certain individuals are simply unworthy. I bought those for my own parents. Initially, I was considering not bringing them home if third sister-in-law told anyone about it, but I'll take them to my parents' house instead. Xianxia was aware of the recent events concerning the second branch of the family. Additionally, she had experienced mistreatment from her own family in the past, so she could empathize with the situation. Letting out a sigh, she remarked, you're right. There are all kinds of people. Some individuals simply don't deserve to be cherished. Fortunately, your family is capable and can handle any situation without fear. Ms.Yan smiled and exchanged a knowing glance with Xianxia. If it weren't for fifth sister-in-law, their family wouldn't be in such a favorable position now. She would always remember this kindness. Having purchased the food, Ms.Yan intended to keep what she needed for herself. Ms. Nyo wouldn't dare to snatch the food from her own family, at most they would share it. Besides the dividends, her husband's monthly salary had reached 7 liang. The couple deducted 2 liang and saved the remaining 5. With money in their hands, they didn't have to rely on anyone to fulfill their needs. Naturally, they had no fear of unreasonable demands from their mother-in-law. Not only her husband and second brother, but Shao Miling's husband and father-in-law also worked at the Yan family's bean production workshop, earning 2 liang each month. There was no justification for her to be unjustly treated. After discussing their shopping plans, Ms.Yan exchanged a meaningful look with Xianxia, conveying her intentions. Xianxia called her over with a smile, and they began conversing under the shade of the loquat tree in the yard. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1033, Ms.Yan knows. Fifth sister-in-law, have you heard that my father-in-law and mother-in-law are looking for a daughter-in-law for my second brother? Ms.Yan asked. Xianxia nodded, saying, yes, that's quite common. Ms.Yan let out a sigh and continued, yes. Second brother is still young, but he already has 2 children. Despite that, his family is doing well and many people are willing to marry him. According to my mother-in-law, even a 15 or 16-year-old girl is willing to become his wife, which makes her feel very proud. But can a 15 or 16-year-old girl truly be a stepmother to her own grandchildren? Xianxia replied with a knowing smile. Understanding her point, Ms.Yan said, I can't hide anything from you, fifth sister-in-law. She blushed slightly and continued, on my mother's side, I have a cousin who is a widow. She is about the same age as second brother and has a kind-hearted and down-to-earth nature. However, she hasn't been lucky. After her husband, the only son in the family, passed away, her husband's clan pressured her to adopt a child around 7 or 8 years old to carry on the family lineage. Think about it, fifth sister-in-law. How can we adopt a child who is already aware of his biological parents? How can he not feel attached to them? Even if we adopt him, it would just be raising someone else's son. My cousin refused, so she returned to her maternal family. While her parents, brothers, and sister-in-law are supportive, relying on them in the future after her parents pass away may not be ideal. Since second brother is looking for a daughter-in-law, my mother wants to propose this idea for her. What do you think, fifth sister-in-law? Ms.Yan knew that Xianxia understood the situation. Although the first section of the family had severed ties with the second section, they wouldn't turn a blind eye if something truly happened to the second section. As for the second section of the family, they would undoubtedly be satisfied with their daughter-in-law chosen by the first section. Ms.Yan sought Xiaoxian's opinion because she knew that fifth sister-in-law was clever and had a plan in mind. If she could help, it would be easier for her family to navigate this matter. However, Ms.Yan had no intention of informing her father-in-law and mother-in-law about the proposal. While her father-in-law might be accepting, her mother-in-law would certainly react with anger. If she were to suggest it, it would be met with immediate rejection. On the other hand, second brother was currently occupied with his work in the workshop, and his father and brothers treated him well. If they were to approach him and suggest meeting his potential daughter-in-law, he would likely agree without much hesitation. Once he gave his approval, there would be no issues with their father-in-law and mother-in-law. Xianxia hoped that the second section of the family would marry a reliable woman to avoid any potential troubles. After the incident with Ms.Yan, they couldn't afford to let their guard down. "Is your cousin truly a good person?" Xianxia inquired. Ms.Yan nodded, a smile gracing her face. "Of course I can vouch for her." Xianxia smiled, finding reassurance in Ms.Yan's response. It made sense that Ms.Yan wouldn't accept her cousin if she wasn't genuinely good-hearted, considering she would become her sister-in-law upon marriage. "I will discuss it with my mother-in-law first and then I'll let you know," Xianxia assured. "All right, I'll wait for you, fifth sister-in-law," Ms.Yan replied with a smile. "Don't worry, I'll come again this evening." When Xianxia relayed the proposal to Ms. Fong, she also believed it was for the best. Ms.Yan desired a good match for Erlang more than anyone else, so she was likely to support the idea. After delivering the message to Ms.Yan, the first section of the family set off for the province the following day. The villagers couldn't help but feel envious. The first section of the Shao family had achieved great success, and everyone in their family had gained recognition. Many villagers had never dared to dream of going to the province in their lifetime, yet the Shao family went there so effortlessly. Concerned that Ms. Niu might divulge the engagement plans to Erlang, Ms. Yan decided to tell her mother straight away. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1034, Wife. Mr. Yan and Mrs. Yan graciously invited Erlang and his brother to their home for lunch. After informing them about the invitation, they requested Mei Qing to come over and meet Erlang. If he found her interesting, they hoped he would consider settling down. Erlang found himself tempted by the proposition. He had already given up on pursuing Ms. Zhang, determined not to cause her any further trouble. His family couldn't tolerate the torment she had inflicted upon them, and he was concerned that she might lead his children astray. Realizing that he was still young and that his children shouldn't grow up without a mother figure, he understood the importance of eventually getting married. However, he didn't trust his mother's taste in choosing a partner for him. Additionally, he wasn't keen on marrying a girl as young as 15 or 16. He doubted she would be capable of caring for his child. It seemed more reasonable to consider marrying a young widow. After all, hadn't his father remarried? Furthermore, given that the elderly couple from the Yan family had requested to play matchmakers, it felt inconvenient for him to refuse their proposition. Reluctantly, Erlang agreed to meet Mei Qing the following day. On the designated day, Mei Qing arrived at the Yan family residence. To Erlang's surprise, he found himself quite taken with her and immediately agreed to proceed. Upon returning home, he informed his father, who initially expressed discontent, wondering why his son with such a privileged background would choose to marry a widow. He pointed out that there were many suitable young girls available. Hearing Erlang's explanation, his lack of trust in his mother's judgment and concerns about his own youth and ability to care for a child, his father, second uncle, hesitated. Second uncle also had doubts about Ms. Niu's judgment, fearing that another woman like Ms. Zhang would cause chaos in the household. After a brief moment of hesitation, seeing that his son was willing, second uncle decided not to voice his concerns any further. However, when Erlang relayed the news to Ms. Niu, she exploded in anger. "What did you say? You're going to marry a widow. You disappointing child, you'll be the death of me with your thoughtless decisions." She had recently been upset with the rest of the family, so she saw the opportunity of finding Erlang a daughter-in-law as a chance to show off. In fact, because of her, many daughters-in-law and women in the village had been currying favor with her and introducing her to their relatives in the past few days. She felt incredibly smug and proud. Therefore, she had been eager to be selective until now. But then, her son actually came and told her that he wanted to marry a widow. A widow? Ms. Niu felt as if she had been slapped in the face. However, the more she resisted, the more determined Erlang became. He patiently explained to his mother that he already had 2 children, and marrying a widow would make him more capable of caring for them. It was better than marrying a young girl who was 15 or 16 years old. How could she possibly know how to be a mother? Moreover, at 25 years old, he didn't want to marry someone much younger than him. Furthermore, he had seen Mei Qing before and believed she was a genuinely good person. She was the perfect match for him. But no matter what, Ms. Niu refused to accept it. Erlang became irritated and decided not to explain any further. In short, he wanted to marry Mei Qing. If his mother didn't help him, he would find a matchmaker and make it known that he definitely wouldn't marry the girl his mother chose. Second uncle also scolded Ms.Yan, reminding her that since Shao Erlang had set his sights on Mei Qing, she couldn't blame his parents in the future and should refrain from interfering. Ms.Yan grew increasingly frustrated as she couldn't persuade the father and son, so she reluctantly agreed. After all, it was a second marriage, so there was no need to be overly particular. Moreover, Shao Erlang urgently needed a daughter-in-law to come back and take care of the children, handle household chores and so on. Mei Qing was eager to leave her mother's house as soon as possible, so it truly would be inconvenient for her to stay there any longer. The two sides hit it off immediately. There was a good day at the beginning of next month, so the wedding was set at that time. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1035. Comparison. Ms.Yan became so despondent that she secluded herself at home for a few days. Ms.Yan secretly reveled in this, but she didn't dare to show her joy openly. They purposely kept Mei Qing's relation as Ms.Yan's cousin a secret from Ms.Yan, fearing that she would reject the proposal if she knew. However, it wouldn't matter if Ms.Yan found out after Mei Qing moved in. They anticipated that her anger would subside within a maximum of 2 days. 3 days after Xiao Xian and Shao Yunduan left the village, news arrived that Shao Lulang had passed the examination and become a cultivated talent. The third section of the Shao family and Shao Lulang were elated by this news. However, Shao Yunduan, the primus, had just returned to their hometown to pay respects to their ancestors and receive congratulations from everyone. Since the villagers had already seen the primus before, they were well aware of their accomplishments. While cultivated talents were impressive, they paled in comparison to the primus. Hence, Shao Lulang's achievement as a cultivated talent didn't create much of a stir in the village. As the saying goes, one should always fear comparison. Even Ms. Ma, third uncle, and Shao Lulang himself weren't overly thrilled, let alone the villagers. Had Shao Lulang achieved this feat earlier, the entire family would have been ecstatic, causing even Ms. Ma to tremble with joy. But now, when she praised the villagers, their reactions were so tepid that some even remarked, "The fifth son of your first section is still the primus. It will be challenging for your Lulang to make a name for himself." Ms. Ma was infuriated to the point of near collapse. Her anger was so intense that she lost all interest in boasting. She stormed back home and vented her frustration. They are so conceited that they don't even care about cultivated talent masters. They look down on us. She couldn't help but complain further. The first section of the family is utterly despicable. They are everywhere. How did their achievements become a bad thing? It's infuriating. Did Shao Yunduan do this on purpose? Why did they return to the village to pay respects to their ancestors? I suspect they deliberately did it to cause trouble for us and steal Lulang's limelight. Ms. Ma and third uncle were even more eager than Ms. Nyo and her husband to witness Shao Yunduan's failure in the intermediate exam. They harbored such envy towards him for becoming the primus. When Shao Yunduan returned to the village to pay respects to their ancestors, the two of them wished he hadn't shown up at all. However, they couldn't dare to be so disrespectful. Doing so would only make them the subject of even more mockery. The Shao family's house was adorned with gifts, and the first section of the family, along with Shao Yunduan, seemed exceptionally grand. Shao Lulang felt increasingly frustrated the more he observed it. Yet, he couldn't avoid the situation and had to endure it. After a long wait, Shao Lulang had finally become a cultivated talent. However, there was no joy within him when compared to Shao Yunduan's achievements. Hearing his mother's complaints, Shao Lulang grew even more irritated, his face darkening. Enough talking about them. If Shao Yunduan can become an intermediate cultivated talent, then so can I. If he can become an intermediate advanced scholar, then so can I. He vowed that one day he would surpass Shao Yunduan and trample him underfoot, making him kneel down and beg for mercy. Ms. Ma, caught up in the excitement, exclaimed, "Absolutely right. Let's not waste our words on them. Lulang is truly talented, far superior to Shao Yunduan, who relies solely on luck. Lulang, you must earn me the title of primus too. Let's see who would dare to make sarcastic remarks in this village then." Shao Lulang's face grew even darker. He shot a cold glance at Ms. Ma and silently retreated to his room, refusing to say another word. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1036, To Province. She was so stubbornly ignorant that he found it impossible to reason with her. Dealing with Xiao Yunduan was already frustrating enough, and now he had to deal with her as well. What did she think being the primus meant? The Great Qin Empire had countless scholars. It wasn't something that could be easily achieved. Was she trying to console him or mock him? If she weren't his biological mother, he would almost suspect that she was intentionally making things difficult for him. Why was he always so unlucky? Xiao Yunduan seemed to always have the upper hand. The matter of Xiao Lulang becoming a cultivated talent passed by without much fanfare. Ms. Ma and third uncle had been suppressing their anger and swearing that being an intermediate cultivated talent wasn't anything impressive. When their own son became a cultivated talent, they would hold a grand celebration feast. They couldn't let the first section of the family steal all the limelight. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yunduan progressed so quickly that the other families, including the cultivated talent, provincial champion and primus, were still reeling from the shock when Xiao Yunduan had already reached the pinnacle of scholars. Xiao Lulang was completely overshadowed. If Xiao Lulang had become an intermediate cultivated talent 3 years ago, it would have been remarkable. But now, they couldn't even bring it up anymore. Such bad luck. Upon arriving at the province, Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan began to settle in happily, tidying up their surroundings. Since it was nighttime, Xiao Xian asked Xianxia to order 2 tables of food from a nearby restaurant. The dishes at the restaurant were exquisite, with a wide variety of ingredients. They even ordered some special dishes. The 3-cup chicken, soyho flowers, meatballs, blood duck, steamed fish head and more were all delicious. After a long day of travel, they were all feeling a bit tired. After having dinner and chatting for a while, they retired to the room to rest. But for Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan, who had experienced so much, it wasn't a big deal. Once they left the hall, Xiao Yunduan took hold of Xiao Xian's hand. Xiao Xian turned to look at him and they exchanged smiles. "Darling, are you feeling tired?" "Oh, not at all. Shall we take a leisurely walk back? Maybe even take a detour and explore the garden?" "Sounds lovely." The moonlight cascaded like water, casting a gentle silver glow on the flowers and trees. In the stillness of the night, everything seemed serene and tranquil. With her newlywed partner by her side, this serenity and quietness only amplified. Her heart inexplicably soared as if she were immersed in a sea of honey. Unbeknownst to her, Xiao Yunduan shifted from holding Xiao Xian's hand to placing his hands on her shoulders, bringing them closer together. Their footsteps gradually slowed until they stopped before a gardenia plant. The flowers and plants in the garden had flourished under the nurturing power of Xiao Xian's wood element. Now, with another touch of her power, they appeared even more vibrant. The hydrangeas, hibiscus, crepe myrtles, gardenias, moonflowers and beautiful bananas had never bloomed so magnificently. A cluster of jade-green leaves adorned with snow-white flowers, each the size of an egg. The layers of petals unfolded gracefully and elegantly, enhancing their beauty under the moonlight. A gentle evening breeze carried a fragrant aroma, filling their lungs. The couple, deeply immersed in their affectionate embrace, felt slightly intoxicated. Xiao Xian reached out to caress the blossoms, a smile adorning her face. "These flowers are truly exquisite." She felt a sense of accomplishment. Having superpowers was truly a blessing. Xiao Yunduan's excitement grew. He leaned down, planting a tender kiss on Xiao Xian's cheek, then gently captured her lips, chuckling. "No flower could ever compare to my beloved wife. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1037, Slightly Guilty. Xiao Xian blushed, her cheeks turning a rosy hue. No flirting." The words made her heart flutter, leaving her in a state of disarray. Embarrassment washed over her, causing her legs to feel weak. Xiao Yunduan chuckled softly and sighed. "We're already married, why are you so shy? There's no one else here." "That's not the point." Xiao Xian's face grew hotter as she grumbled inwardly. She had expected him to be more gentle and refined when they were in the presence of others, but it seemed that he remained the same when they were alone. Xiao Yunduan smiled again. "I understand. You're not used to it yet. With time you'll grow accustomed to it." Confusion filled Xiao Xian's gaze as she looked at him. His gentle face drew closer and closer, and before Xiao Xian could react, he kissed her. This kiss differed from their previous gentle ones. It was a fervent invasion, leaving Xiao Xian feeling dizzy and weak. After the kiss, he held her in an intimate embrace. Her lips were slightly parted and she breathed lightly. Her eyes were watery and filled with confusion, her face flushed. When she looked up and met his smiling eyes, Xianxia felt even more embarrassed. There was nowhere to hide, so she sought solace in Shao Yunduan's arms, burying herself like an ostrich. Shao Yunduan couldn't help but laugh. "Why are you suddenly so enthusiastic?" Xianxia huffed. "Let's go back to the room." Staying any longer would only deepen her embarrassment. She didn't want to hear what else he might say. She wanted to escape. Shao Yunduan's smile widened. "All right, let's head back to the room. Don't worry, my dear wife. I'm not in a rush. Stop saying silly things." Xianxia squirmed in embarrassment, trying to free herself. Shao Yunduan held her tightly, a mischievous smile on his face. Okay, you're not in a hurry, but I am. What's the rush?" "I'm just eager." "Why, you're not allowed to be eager either." All right. No more teasing. Let's go back to our room." Shao Yunduan scooped her up in his arms and made his way towards the bedroom. Their desire to be intimate with each other was evident. The tenderness gradually turned into passion as they spent the night together. The next day, everyone woke up, feeling even more exhausted after a full night's sleep, except for Xianxia and Shao Yunduan, who seemed remarkably energized. The others were impressed. "Are you guys used to traveling? We can't match your enthusiasm." Shao Yunduan smiled, while Xianxia blushed shyly, feeling a twinge of guilt. Shao Yunduan handed the invitations to Magistrate Yuezhing Shao and Xie Jingrong. Since they were here, it was customary to visit various places. Given his current status, it was a matter of etiquette. To their surprise, the Xie family extended a warm welcome, sending an elderly woman to greet them. She announced that they would be hosting a banquet in 2 days and invited Ms. Fang and Xianxia as honored guests. Xie Jingrong and Yuezhing Shao arrived together. Upon seeing Ms. Fang and Shao Yunduan, they approached for a conversation. Xianxia sent word for them to meet later, and both of them agreed with a smile, clearly intrigued. What Xianxia wanted to talk about was definitely about how to make money together. The two of them had witnessed her ability to earn money and were filled with admiration. Needless to say, Yuezhing Shao had already made a lot of money by cooperating with Xianxia, and the Yuezhing family had risen to a higher level. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1038, Nervous. The second-in-command in the provincial business world had always been ambitious and filled with a competitive spirit. He had hoped to one day surpass the Yuezhing family and take over their position. But now, it was clear that the Yuezhing family had far surpassed him. If the second-in-command wanted to catch up with the Yuezhing family, he would need the same stroke of luck as them, meeting people like Xianxia and Shao Yunduan. Speaking of which, even Madame Yuezhing had to acknowledge that the first section of the family was exceptionally fortunate. One was Xianxia, the other was Shao Yunduan, and the third was brimming with countless business ideas. With one becoming the primus, their future was promising, so it was wise to maintain good relations with them. Ms. Fang felt anxious as she discussed with her daughters-in-law. "I've never been to the Xie family before. They seem very dignified. Is it appropriate for me to attend? I don't know much and I don't want to embarrass myself." "How about? I don't go. Miss Chow, you can go. Take Tao Tao with you and let her have the experience." Miss Su and Yang Xiaoni nodded in agreement. The sisters-in-law were initially nervous, afraid that their mother-in-law would insist they come along. To be honest, although they were curious about the wealth of the Xie family and wanted to see it for themselves, they were also apprehensive. It would be terribly embarrassing if they were ridiculed. They believed it would be better if they didn't attend. Chao Xin smiled and spoke up, "Mom, Tao Tao and I will accompany you. Sister-in-law and third sister-in-law can choose not to go, but you must attend. First Madame Xie specifically invited you, so it's important that you go. Don't underestimate yourself. You're the mother of the primus now. Who would dare to look down on you? Even in the capital, almost everyone would have to show you respect. So don't worry about the Xie family. We should just go." Since the Xie family extended the invitation, they won't criticize or give you a hard time. Chao Xian was well aware of the Xie family's close ties with the capital and their extensive networks. They must have known about the imperial censor's impeachment of Shao Yunduan and how Emperor Qi Xian reprimanded the censor for his actions, showing support for Shao Yunduan. They would also be aware of Chao Xian's role in saving the peony flowers, which symbolized Shao Yunduan's connection to the late Empress Dowager. That's why the Xie family held the Shao family in high regard, leading to First Madame Xie's invitation to Ms. Fang. Otherwise, such an invitation might not have come to fruition. Considering the Xie family's current status, even though Shao Yunduan was the primus, he wouldn't hold much importance to them. Hearing Qiao Xian's words, Miss Fang felt less nervous, but she still hesitated. Can I really go? Of course. There will be many more occasions like this in the future. Qiao Xian replied with a smile. My husband and I might have to invite you, Tao Tao, and sister-in-law to accompany us to the capital someday, so we can have fun and entertain others. Yang Xiaoni and Ms. Su became excited. To the capital? The capital. Fifth sister-in-law, is that true? Miss Fang couldn't contain her joy upon hearing Qiao Xian's words. She smiled and said, The capital? That's the emperor's domain. I can't even dare to dream about it. You're still young. If you want to go and see, I'll support you. Qiao Xian smiled. It's hard to say. It might be possible in the future. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1039. Please help. Miss Fang wore a contented smile, feeling an overwhelming sense of happiness. After engaging in a pleasant conversation for a while, Miss Fang let out a sigh and made the decision to depart. Considering the host's proactive invitation and the formal announcement they had made, it would be impolite for her to decline. Not attending would convey a sense of disrespect. Although she felt a bit anxious, she reassured herself that she would simply advise her daughter-in-law to speak and behave modestly. It would only require half a day of her time as a guest. On the other hand, Tao Tao felt quite delighted. She had visited the Yuezhing family on several occasions, spending time with Qiao Xian and the others, and had gained extensive knowledge about lipstick. Her confidence and cheerful demeanor were evident. Furthermore, her brother held a high position, and her sister-in-law was financially successful. Her family was affluent and self-assured. No matter where she went, Tao Tao carried herself with a resolute confidence. After finalizing the agreement, Qiao Xian proceeded to the study to locate Shao Yunduan and the others. Shao Yunduan greeted Qiao Xian with a smile. I was about to send someone to find you. Qiao Xian responded with a smile. I had a feeling you would. After exchanging pleasantries, they shifted their focus to the matter at hand. Qiao Xian had been pondering over the dragon fruits and papayas located outside the city, so she inquired about them. Upon hearing her question, Yuezhing Shao and Xie Jingrong exchanged glances and broke into smiles. Xie Jingrong chuckled and replied, The fruit trees in the southern region are quite remarkable. Brother Yuezhing invited me to take a look, and I must say the dragon fruits and papayas are thriving and distinct. Indeed. Their laughter filled the room. Qiao Xian comprehended the stark contrast between the papayas and dragon fruits and the fruit trees in the northern region. One grew tall with abundant fruits at its top, while the other thrived with an extensive network of roots. Those who had never witnessed it before might not find it particularly rare or novel. Yuezhing Shao spoke with a smile. The papayas and dragon fruits have grown remarkably large and they should ripen soon. I've deployed patrols in the area, and many business owners have requested reservations. Qiao Xian felt a twinge of embarrassment. I apologize for the trouble I've caused. Third brother, please find a trustworthy manager and hire some workers for us. The orchard was unrelated to the Yuezhing family, it belonged solely to Qiao Xian. Yuezhing Shao nodded and replied with a smile, That's reasonable. I'll make the arrangements promptly. If you ever need anything in the future, just come to me. Qiao Xian nodded and smiled, saying, Of course, I will definitely seek your assistance. As straightforward individuals, they swiftly settled the matter. Qiao Xian expressed her desire to plant not only papayas and dragon fruits but also lychees, longan, mangoes, citrus fruits, grapefruits, bananas and other saplings in the south before they entered the capital. She personally covered all the expenses. The cost of hiring labor could be treated as an additional investment. What Qiao Xian needed was time, but she lacked personnel to utilize. While the Zhang village and her own family had some people to spare, they were unable to oversee an entire province. Yuezhing Shao readily agreed and mentioned that he would stay for a maximum of 20 days, asking Qiao Xian if it was feasible. If it wasn't, he could extend his stay by 2 or 3 days. His subordinates were willing to pay double the labor fee for an extended period of over 10 days. Qiao Xian, eager to arrive as soon as possible, nodded with a smile. Xie Jingrong and Yuezhing Shao trusted that Qiao Xian had her own methods of cultivation, so they didn't inquire further. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1040, Plan. This fell under the category of exclusive and confidential manuals, not to be easily shared. Both of them held a great interest in the local fruits that could be grown, particularly lychees, longan fruits and the like. As long as they could be planted and casually savored, they were content. Xie Jingrong mentioned to Xiao Xian, "By the way, my servant obtained some seedlings recently. They say the fruits are both sour and sweet, and they're not available anywhere else. I wonder what they are. Would you like some tomorrow?" Xiao Xian's curiosity piqued, and she happily nodded. "Of course, I want to taste all the fresh fruits I've never encountered before." Xie Jingrong nodded in agreement. Once the suburban fields were secured, Xiao Xian wouldn't need to worry about anything else. There was an ample supply of cassava powder and creeping figs. Xiao and Xie Jingrong always managed to acquire various fresh fruits and milk. Nearly 10 dessert shops were flourishing and running smoothly. Xiao initially believed it was just a small venture with limited earning potential, but he was in for a surprise at the end of the month. During the peak season, the monthly profits of the shops exceeded 50,000 liang. That meant they would earn at least 400,000 liang in a year. He and Xiao Xian each received 40% of the total income, amounting to over 150,000 liang, while Xie Jingrong received 20%, roughly 70,000 to 80,000 liang. The primary reason was that the raw materials didn't account for a significant portion of the costs, and not everyone possessed the skill to create these delicacies. Since they were the sole proprietors without any other branches, they reaped the profits. It was a shame that obtaining milk wasn't easy. To acquire milk, they would need to establish a dairy farm. However, various sugary desserts relied on milk as it enhanced the flavor. Otherwise, Shao would have considered opening a branch in another city. Even so, the Xie family had expanded their ranch and were actively discussing the possibility of opening 2 or 3 shops in a bustling city that could be reached within a day. Shao contemplated the idea of running to the south in the future to establish a ranch or open a shop elsewhere. This business was remarkably lucrative and required low investment. It would be foolish not to pursue it. Shao and Xie Jingrong stayed for lunch and bid their farewells in the afternoon. As evening approached, Shao arrived to deliver money to Xiao Xian. Payments for tea leaves, lipsticks, silver fungus and sugar water shops were still pending. However, every time she acquired goods from the first section of the Shaoding village family, she would leave a written note and take as many items as possible, duly signed and acknowledged by the Shao family. The actual value of these goods remained unknown to the first section of the Shao family. The amount of money involved was substantial, prompting Shao to keep it a secret from the rest of the family. Coming from a merchant family, he had been involved with money from a young age. He had witnessed how wealth could influence people's intentions and desires. He understood the allure of riches better than most. A sum of 100 or even 1,000 liang might not be significant, but 10,000 liang would likely test one's limits. And what about 70,000 to 80,000 liang or even more than 100,000 liang? How many individuals could resist the temptation? Shao was surprised that no one, not even Ms. Fong, had ever inquired about it. Everyone seemed to accept it as a matter of course. Shao had pondered over how to respond to their questions, but none of his ideas proved useful. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1041, Wealth. Shao held great admiration for the Shao family. They truly deserved it. They were a good family and their character was commendable. If it had been anyone else, how could they resist asking? Who in the world wouldn't be interested in silver? As Shao, Xiao Xian and Shao Yunduan went through the accounts, they discovered that Xiao Xian had amassed a total of 78,000 liang, not including the 10% of the tea bricks that the Yuezhing family would provide at the year's end to be paid later. So Xiao Xian now possessed 340,000 liang. It was an immense fortune. There was a high probability that many impoverished duke mansions in the capital would not be as wealthy, let alone the ancestral mansion that had been passed down through generations. Xiao Xian's joy overflowed and she beamed at Shao Yunduan. "Darling, we're wealthy once again. Let's purchase more land when we arrive in the capital." Shao Yunduan smiled and replied, "Certainly." Xiao Xian had essentially been the one earning the money. His family's assistance was limited, so he naturally wouldn't interfere. Shao chimed in with a smile, "Buying land in the capital isn't easy. There are numerous noble families and prominent business clans. Since you're new here, it's best to keep a low profile and not draw attention to yourselves." He chuckled helplessly. "From my perspective, sister-in-law's ability to earn money is truly remarkable. She's truly outstanding." It hadn't been easy for the Yuezhing family to enter the business scene in the capital. They had attempted it but failed. Instead, they settled for the next best option and invested a substantial sum of money in constructing a road. It took them at least 5 years to establish a solid foundation. Of course, the significant investment in the road and the hard work in the initial stages had been worthwhile. The returns were remarkably generous. Upon hearing Yuezhing Shao's words, Xianxia regained her composure and responded, "Yes, this is the capital." Yuezhing Shao glanced at Shao Yunduan and playfully remarked, "It seems like we'll have to hold on to the money for now. When you become a high-ranking official, we can buy a shop and some farmland." Yuezhing Shao's eyes sparkled with excitement, and he nodded in agreement. "Count me in." Shao Yunduan smiled and replied, "Well, it seems I still have a long way to go. But don't worry, that day will come." The three of them shared a laughter. Xianxia spoke up, saying, "Actually, it doesn't matter if we can't achieve much in the capital. Let's not put unnecessary pressure on ourselves." Shao Yunduan smiled warmly. "My understanding wife. I just don't want you to be burdened with excessive pressure. Can be quite exhausting." Xianxia expressed her concern. "Don't worry, I won't." Shao Yunduan reassured her. Yuezhing Shao was speechless, feeling that it was time for him to take his leave. Tao Tao and the others had been compensated for their work, but Xianxia, being generous as always, rewarded them with bonuses whenever she received a substantial sum of money. This time was no exception. Everyone received 100 to 300 liang and received red envelopes, allowing them to have extra spending money in the province. Tao Tao and Ms. Fong received the largest shares. Eldest uncle was not given any money, everything was entrusted to Ms. Fong. Xianxia's intention was to give the money to Ms. Fong under the guise of filial piety. If eldest uncle received the money, it would likely be taken advantage of by either the second or third section of the family. As long as it was a benefit, Xianxia had fulfilled her duty towards her elders. How they chose to handle it was no longer her concern. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1042, Getting Strawberries. However, there was a concern that eldest uncle might reveal the source of the money to the second and third sections of the family, which could lead to trouble. Although Xianxia was not afraid of trouble, she preferred to minimize it. Currently, the second and third sections of the family, as well as other families in the village, knew that their family had earned a significant amount of money, but the exact amount remained a mystery. In the eyes of the villagers, it might be a few hundred liang, and the bolder ones would guess it to be over 1,000 taels. They did not dare to imagine the true extent of their wealth. If they knew that Xianxia had tens of thousands of liang in income and already possessed hundreds of thousands of liang, it would surely astonish them. Ms. Fong was taken aback by the generous red packet from Xianxia and insisted, "This is too much. Both you and Yunduan need the money, and we have already started paying them for their work, so the salary is not low either. Just give them 10 liang." Upon hearing this, Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni hesitated to accept it. Xianxia smiled and reassured them, "Mom, I know what I'm doing. The Yuezhing family has paid me a substantial amount of money, more than enough for our expenses in the capital. Don't worry about it. You can keep these and use them to buy more food and new clothes. We have enough money, so we should enjoy a better life." Laughter filled the room. Ms. Fong smiled and said, "What are you saying? We're so wealthy. Are you really not short on money?" Xianxia nodded, her smile unwavering. "Of course." Ms. Fong sighed with a smile. "Both of you are capable individuals and I rely on you. Well, since you're so kind, go ahead and let them accept it. But don't make it a precedent that you won't give it to anyone else in the future, and don't blame anyone either." Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni happily expressed their gratitude and accepted the red packets. Chunyu and the others were also thrilled to receive their own red packets. Yang Xiaoni agreed with Xianxia's suggestion, so she and Shao Sanlang brought 50 liang with them, intending to indulge in delicious food. However, they were pleasantly surprised when Xianxia gave each of them 200 liang, totaling 400 liang. Yang Xiaoni immediately planned to spend 200 liang solely on satisfying her appetite. Since they had come this far, they wanted to enjoy a hearty meal. The following day, to Xianxia's delight, she received a surprise from Xie Jingrong. dozens of strawberry seedlings. Although the strawberries were still small and inexperienced, with careful nurturing, they might not grow as large as the varieties found in the modern world. Nevertheless, Xianxia believed that her space power would expedite their growth and enhance their flavor. Eager to begin, she decided to plant half of the seedlings in her space. As for the remaining ones, she would find a couple of flower pots to temporarily house them, bringing them back home to transplant into the garden. Having spent a long time at home with Shao Yunduan, Xianxia anticipated that with a few more superpowers, these seedlings would grow robustly. By the end of the year, some of them might be ready to cover half an acre of land. Though Tao Tao didn't know what they were, if fifth sister-in-law called them strawberries and saw their value, they must be something exceptional. Xianxia entrusted Tao Tao with the care of the seedlings. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1043, Guest. Tao Tao happily agreed and asked with interest. Xianxia naturally didn't hold back any information. After consulting the Spaces system, she understood the characteristics of strawberries and explained them to Tao Tao in detail. Tao Tao had grown more mature and serious compared to before, as she was now 16 years old. At the age of 16, it was time for her to think about finding a partner. However, the better the family circumstances became, the more challenging it was to discuss family matters. It was a difficult topic. It was hard to predict which family would prove advantageous in the future. After Xianxia's explanation, Tao Tao requested assistance and left with the flower pot. These seeds were precious, and she had to take good care of them for fifth sister-in-law's sake. As per fifth sister-in-law's description, the strawberries were red, plump, soft, juicy, and sweet. They had a delightful hint of sourness amidst the sweetness. They were truly delicious. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the Xie family's visit. Miss Fang felt extremely nervous and believed that none of the clothes she liked were suitable. In the end, Xianxia selected an indigo gray pattern dress for her, along with a neat bun and a silver hairpin. The finishing touch was an elegant longevity hairpin, exuding a sense of tidiness, dignity, and elegance. Miss Fang breathed a sigh of relief and smiled, saying, "Miss Qiao, you are so much more refined than us country bumpkins." Everyone burst into laughter. In the morning, Tao Tao had been asked by Xianxia to help with her attire. She tied her hair into a bun, which suited a girl like her, making her appear lovely and intelligent. Her bun was adorned with a freshly bloomed pink rose. A jade hairpin embedded with pearls and rubies held it in place. Her eyebrows were delicately groomed, and she had a light layer of makeup that accentuated her youthful complexion, making her even more radiant and beautiful. Tao Tao wore a light pink cherry blossom embroidered dress, complemented by an ivory white pleated dress. She stood tall, resembling a delicate flower in full bloom. When Tao Tao arrived at Miss Fang's house with Xianxia, Miss Fang and Yang Xiaoni were taken aback and couldn't stop praising her. Tao Tao blushed and shyly lowered her head. However, a faint smile appeared at the corners of her lips, indicating her obvious happiness. After all, who wouldn't enjoy dressing up beautifully at her age? Once everything was prepared, Chunyu, and Xiaoman departed for the Xie family's residence in a carriage. With them gone, Miss Su and Yang Xiaoni found themselves with some free time. They persuaded eldest uncle to accompany them for a shopping trip. Shao Yunduan had been invited as a guest at the local college, so he had already left. Today, First Madame Xie was hosting Ms. Fang, the mother-in-law, and her daughter-in-law. As she was unfamiliar with the customs of Ms. Fang's hometown, she didn't invite many guests, except for 5 close relatives and friends, along with their daughters. The Xie family was truly an aristocratic household, and their mansion was grand and well-maintained. The spacious halls and well-behaved servants made one feel a sense of apprehension, almost afraid to make any noise. If it weren't for Xianxia's presence and Miss Fang's previous experience at the Yuejing family, she would have been so nervous that she wouldn't know what to do. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1044. That's not all. Tao Tao was also feeling a bit nervous, so she closely followed Xianxia. Recalling Xianxia's words, she refrained from looking around, despite her curiosity. The maids leading the way could sense the nervousness in everyone, including themselves and the 3 maids. However, this reaction was not surprising. They had never witnessed such an extravagant setting nor visited a family of such high status, so their behavior was understandable. As instructed by First Madam, they refrained from mocking or making fun of anyone. Upon arriving home, Miss Fang let out a sigh and voiced her concerns to Xian. That mansion is truly impressive, and the servants are extremely well-mannered and courteous. Yet I can't shake the feeling that something is off. Maybe I'm overthinking it? Xian responded with a smile. You're mistaken, my dear. This is simply the norm in wealthy households. You'll grow accustomed to it as you encounter more of them. Ms. Fang chose to believe her words, finding solace in them. She smiled and said, That's reassuring. Perhaps I've been overanalyzing things. I'll adjust to it in due course. After all, families like the Xie family are few and far between. Xian felt relieved upon calming her down. However, that wasn't entirely the truth. The servants of the Xie family indeed held a sense of superiority. It was evident in their subconscious demeanor, conveying a message that said, You're unfamiliar with the customs and etiquette of the affluent, and we understand your lack of exposure. Though their politeness remained intact, it did create a slight unease. It was no wonder Ms. Fang sought Xian's opinion on this matter. Consequently, Ms. Fang found the overwhelming politeness of the Xie family's servants somewhat discomforting. She even regretted not finding an excuse for Xian to accompany Tao instead, as she herself felt slightly unnerved. Upon meeting the first madam of the Xie family, she warmly greeted her daughter-in-law and niece-in-law and politely introduced the other ladies to Ms. Fang. Ms. Fang gradually found herself becoming more comfortable in her surroundings. First Madame Xie was aware that Ms. Fang was unfamiliar with the conversations and topics typically discussed among the elite families in the province. It was safest for Ms. Fang to observe the interactions and drama unfold. Before long, First Madame Xie extended an invitation for everyone to enjoy a show at the opera house. Upon hearing this, Ms. Fang, who had been contemplating how to spend the entire day, felt a surge of happiness. It was a wonderful idea. She could simply sit back and watch the performance, saving herself the trouble of engaging in conversation. Even if there were discussions, they would likely revolve around specific scenes, making it an easy task. Xian couldn't help but admire the Xie family. They were undoubtedly a prominent family, skilled in managing social interactions. The only distinction lay in whether they were willing to employ their intelligence. As long as they were willing, there was nothing they couldn't handle. The young girls showed little interest in the show, so the young ladies from the Xie family kindly invited them to explore the garden. With a smile, First Madame Xie turned to Tao and Xian saying, Let's go to the garden and have some fun. Don't get bored sitting here. She then entrusted the care of Tao and Xian to the Miss of the Xie family. Xian expressed gratitude with a smile and accompanied Tao and the others. Chuanfin and Xiaoman followed suit. The ladies were well aware of how to entertain and engage with Miss Fang, a carefully chosen guest of First Madame Xie. The approach with the young ladies, however, was different. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1045, Exclusion. The young ladies, ranging from around 14 to 16 years old, were indulged and spoiled by their families, lacking a certain moral compass. Furthermore, they possessed limited worldly knowledge and were accustomed to their own group of close friends and playmates. Consequently, they sought out their familiar companions and engaged in conversation, disregarding Tao and Xian. Some of them even held the belief that the Xie family was excessively arrogant, considering the Shao family to be insignificant newcomers. What if the man from the Shao family became the primus? Rumor had it that he could only attain a low-ranking position even if he obtained the title. Without a prestigious background, he would forever remain a low-ranking official. In their lifetimes, they could never hope to compare themselves to the Xie family or penetrate their exclusive social circle. The actions of the Xie family perplexed them greatly. Additionally, since Xian and Tao did not actively seek favor from them, the young girls grew even more disdainful of their presence. Fortunately, being guests of First Madame Xie, they displayed proper etiquette. They were unlike the Zhao family or Ms. Mi Jr. and her mother from the county, understanding that as guests they should not overstep their boundaries. They neither liked nor found it troublesome. Nevertheless, Tao felt deeply embarrassed. The young girl possessed a shy nature and had arrived at the Xie family as a guest with apprehension, fearing the potential ridicule if she made any mistakes. How could she endure such treatment? Xian firmly grasped her hand, attempting to console her. Pay no mind to them. They are guests of the Xie family just like us. They hold no significance in our lives. We do not belong to the same social circle, so we merely need to show them some respect. They can play amongst themselves and we need not engage with them. We have no obligations to flatter them. Don't worry, they won't dare to cause trouble for us. If they do, the Xie family won't let them off easily. They will be forever barred from marrying into the Xie family. They are not foolish. Cao Cao beamed with a smile, feeling much better. She looked at Xiao Xian with admiration and exclaimed, "Fifth sister-in-law, you're the best. You always make perfect sense. I'll listen to you." Xiao Xian found her words amusing and gently tapped her forehead with her index finger. She replied with a smile, "You have such a way with words." Cao Cao blushed and covered her forehead, saying, "No, I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart." Xiao Xian chuckled happily. What did Xiao Xian mean by most fatal? That was it. Why was Cao Cao so adorable? While the aunt and sister-in-law continued their conversation and laughter, Xie Ruifeng, the fourth daughter of the Xie family, and her cousin He Jiqing approached and invited them to the pavilion for tea. Recognizing their graciousness, Xiao Xian accepted with a smile and left with Cao Cao. Observing the prosperity of the Xie family, Cao Cao let out a sigh of relief. She then recollected Xiao Xian's words. Yes, she wasn't here to seek assistance, so why should she feel ashamed? Her confidence grew stronger. In the pavilion, most of the girls engaged in lively conversations and laughter. As Xiao Xian had anticipated, the Xie family held the Shao family in high regard. Although the girls didn't fully understand the situation or think much of it, they dared not cause any trouble. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1046, Looking for Someone? Some of the girls even smiled and greeted Xiao Xian and Cao Cao. Xiao Xian noticed that Cao Cao was doing well and engaging in conversation with the miss of the Xie family and her two sisters. Cao Cao seemed a bit shy, but she was managing fine, which relieved Xiao Xian. However, when she glanced back later, Xiao Xian realized that Cao Cao was no longer in the pavilion. Xiaoman, who had been following Cao Cao, was also nowhere to be seen. Surprised, Xiao Xian inquired with a smile when she spotted the fourth daughter of the Xie family playing chess with someone else. Ms.Yan was engrossed in her competitive chess match and paid little attention to Xiao Xian. She threw a glance in Xiao Xian's direction while still focused on the chessboard and replied with a smile, "Did they go to the garden? Sister Lin and the others mentioned wanting to play games on the lawn, so they might have gone together. Don't worry, our garden is safe and there are servants everywhere. If they get lost, they can ask for help." The man playing chess with Ms.Yan sneered and cast a disdainful look at Xiao Xian. Indeed, it would be impossible to lose someone in the Xie family. Internally frustrated, Xiao Xian remained composed and calmly responded, "She's not familiar with this place, so I hope she's okay." Then she left. The woman playing chess with fourth Ms.Yan was taken aback. She sneered softly and commented, "What's so impressive about the Shao family? They seem incapable and lack proper manners. Quite arrogant, I must say." Fourth Ms.Yan smiled but didn't say anything. This guest had been invited by the senior members of the family, while she belonged to the junior branch. It wasn't her place to intervene, although she shared similar thoughts. Xiao Xian realized that every family was alike in some ways. Some connections were destined while others were not. Cao Cao had never experienced such a family before, and it seemed that the miss of the Xie family was unaware of it as well. Well, Cao Cao would find her own way. Just how vast was the Xie family's estate? Could it span over such a large radius? If Cao Cao truly wanted to find someone within the premises, she would be able to locate them. Xiao Xian activated her heightened senses and quickly located Cao Cao. She found her behind a vine-covered rockery not far from the lake, which she hadn't noticed before due to the obstruction of a flowering tree and the rockery itself. As Xiao Xian approached, she realized that Xiaoman was nowhere to be seen, and even He Jiqing's maidservant was absent. With a sense of urgency, Xiao Xian hastened her steps. Observing the cousin of the Xie family, He Jiqing, she appeared gentle and mild on the surface, but her eyes betrayed a certain mischievousness. Xiao Xian had a hunch that this woman was not easy to get along with and had ulterior motives. Xiao Xian couldn't bring herself to believe that He Jiqing genuinely wanted to befriend Cao Cao. It seemed more likely that she intended to exploit Cao Cao in some way. When Xiao Xian was about 10 meters away from Cao Cao, she witnessed He Jiqing extend her leg, preparing to trip Cao Cao. Startled, Xiao Xian exclaimed, "Miss He." He Jiqing was taken aback by the sudden interruption. Hastily retracting her attempt at a cheap shot, she stumbled and almost lost her balance. Tao Tao, completely oblivious to the danger, was overjoyed upon spotting Xiao Xian. She waved excitedly, her eyes sparkling. Fifth sister-in-law, there are so many beautiful koi fish here. Xiao Xian smiled and approached calmly. Really? Then let me have a look too. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1047. You're mistaken. A flicker of anger passed through He Jiqing's lowered gaze. She looked up with a smile and said, Fifth Mrs. Shao, are you here to admire the fish as well? Please enjoy. I'll take my leave. Wait a moment, Miss He. Xiao Xian smiled at Tao Tao. Tao Tao, go back to the pavilion and find Chunyu. He'll send Xiaoman over as well. It will be time for lunch soon. Tao Tao was puzzled, but she always followed Xiao Xian's instructions, so she nodded with a smile and obediently left. Xiao Xian directed a sharp gaze at He Jiqing. Initially composed and gentle, He Jiqing slowly grew increasingly irritated and embarrassed. She asked in a gentle tone, Fifth Mrs. Shao, what's with that look in your eyes? I am unaware of how I have offended you. Xiao Xian stated, Tao Tao did nothing to offend you, Missy, so why did you try to trip her just now? Fifth Mrs. Shao, be cautious with your words. He Jiqing retorted indignantly. I didn't do such a thing. You must have seen it incorrectly. Xiao Xian smiled. There is no one else present, so there is no need for pretenses, Miss He. I saw it clearly, so I am not mistaken. Fifth Mrs. Shao, you need evidence to support your claims. If you continue to slander me like this, you can deny it, but I have a habit of getting to the bottom of things. Since you refuse to speak the truth, I can only bring this matter to eldest young Master Xie's attention. I believe someone as astute as him can address my concerns. Xiao Xian discerned that He Jiqing was quite calculating, and so was Xie Jingrong. In other words, He Jiqing was skilled in manipulating the emotions of Madame Yuejing, the other madams and the ladies, but she would find it difficult to manipulate someone like Xie Jingrong. Xiao Xian was merely attempting to intimidate her. She mentioned Xie Jingrong because he was the person she was most familiar with in the mansion and was known for his intelligence. She had no intention of blowing this minor incident out of proportion. However, for some reason, He Jiqing's expression changed upon hearing those words. Despite returning to her composed demeanor, Xiao Xian still observed He Jiqing closely. You're accusing me falsely. Cousin isn't present, so why are you using him as a basis to criticize me? Xiao Xian chuckled. Oh, I understand him quite well, and he is remarkably intelligent. As I mentioned before, I can't afford to overlook any details. It doesn't sit well with me if I don't have a clear understanding of everything. I genuinely want to know what my sister-in-law has done to offend you. It would be easier to make amends if I know the reason, wouldn't you agree? I haven't done anything of the sort. Miss He am not blind. He Jiqing unconsciously tightened her grip on the embroidered handkerchief in her hand, seething with anger. This was why she disliked engaging with individuals from smaller families who lacked proper etiquette. They were shameless and ignorant of their boundaries. Any other young miss or young madam would be left speechless in such a situation without any evidence. No matter how indignant they felt, they could only endure it. However, this impudent person didn't care about such norms. A person like her was capable of anything, solely concerned with her own happiness while disregarding everything else. Since Xiao Xian had made that statement, He Jiqing believed that she would indeed follow through. She had been keeping a close eye on this cousin, which allowed her to learn that he was on friendly terms with the third son of the Yu Zheng family and the primus of the Shao family. Moreover, he had visited the Shao family multiple times, making him quite familiar with Xiao Xian. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1048. Threat? It was no surprise that this individual dared to be so arrogant. He Jiqing clenched her teeth and decided to reveal half of the truth. Since Xiao Xian wouldn't listen to her, she had no choice but to say something. She couldn't risk whether or not Xiao Xian would seek out her cousin. I didn't intend to harm her. I wanted to trip her up, but I had no intention of causing her harm. I would have jumped in to save her. Xiao Xian widened her eyes and regarded her as if she were a fool, as if to say, do you think I'll believe such nonsense? He Jiqing felt a twinge of embarrassment. Even if she were a bystander, she would find herself perplexed, let alone Xiao Xian. He Jiqing took a deep breath and had no choice but to continue explaining. As you know, I am a cousin of the Xie family and my family is truly, well, I have no desire to return there whatsoever. However, something happened recently and my grandaunt intended to send me back. I was genuinely worried and scared. Since you are guest today, I thought that if a guest were to fall into the water and I were to fall ill as a result, my grandaunt and the others would surely abandon the idea of sending me back. I really thought of it at the last moment. I admit that I intended to use Miss Shao, but I certainly didn't mean to deliberately harm her. Moreover, there are numerous servants present in the garden today. If I were to fall into the water and call for help, someone would arrive promptly. Nothing would happen. This is my fault. I shouldn't have attempted to exploit Miss Shao for my personal concerns. I apologize to you. I'm sorry. Please, Fifth Madam Shao, be forgiving. Considering that Miss Shao is unharmed, let this matter be and refrain from mentioning it to anyone else. Can you promise me that, Fifth Madam Shao? Xiao Xian's gaze turned serious. She didn't believe everything He Jiqing said. Perhaps some of it was true, but it certainly wasn't the whole truth. If her relationship with Xie Jingrong were ordinary, Xiao Xian might have chosen to turn a blind eye to the situation. But that was not the case. There was something amiss with He Jiqing. Why did Madame Lady Xie of the Xie family want to send her back home? Why was it necessary for her to stay within the Xie family? The moment Xiao Xian mentioned Xie Jingrong's name, He Jiqing couldn't contain herself, revealing her deep concern for him. Could it be? Xiao Xian's eyelids twitched. Could it be that Madame Lady Xie of the Xie family wanted to send He Jiqing away because she held an interest in Xie Jingrong? It wasn't an implausible notion. Xie Jingrong was an elegant young master, and it was natural for his cousins to be fond of him. Therefore, it seemed unlikely that He Jiqing's intention was to make Tao Tao fall into the water, save her, and feign sickness. She was likely targeting Xie Jingrong. By saving a guest of the Xie family from drowning, she prevented a potential disaster within the Xie family. As the sister of the Primus, her act had safeguarded the reputation of the Xie family and averted trouble. From this perspective, she appeared deserving of marrying Xie Jingrong. If He Jiqing pursued marriage with Xie Jingrong for this reason, how could the Xie family refuse? To refuse would be seen as ungrateful and callous. Xiao Xian couldn't be certain if her speculation was accurate, but even if it wasn't entirely accurate, it wasn't far from the truth. Perhaps this was only one aspect. Miss He likely had other means of support. With these thoughts in mind, Xiao Xian felt a compelling need to inform Xie Jingrong. If Xie Jingrong were to be deceived by such a woman and coerced into marrying her, it would be an immense tragedy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1049, Leaving the Xie Family. Xiao Xian pondered for a moment before speaking to He Jiqing. Leave the Xie family within 3 days and he'll pretend that today's incident never happened. I won't disclose anything to anyone. He Jiqing stared at Xiao Xian in disbelief, unable to contain her frustration any longer. Fifth Mrs. Shao, you're being excessively nosy. Her grandaunt was Madame Lady Xie, and as a proper cousin of the Xie family, she had no say when the family decided to send her away. But Xiao Xian was someone who had no personal stake in the matter. Xiao Xian replied, exactly. Miss He, consider it my intentional meddling. He Jiqing couldn't help but exclaim, what does this have to do with you? Miss He, let's just say I have a habit of being nosy. He Jiqing fell silent, her gaze fixed on Xiao Xian. As a clever individual, she soon realized that Xiao Xian might have picked up on something. Gradually the way He Jiqing looked at Xiao Xian began to change. Startled by this unexpected development, Xiao Xian regained her composure and met her gaze calmly. In that moment their eyes locked, and a silent understanding seemed to pass between them. She knew. He Jiqing knew that Xiao Xian had figured it out. A magical unspoken connection formed between them. He Jiqing's face turned red, feeling a mix of embarrassment and relief. But now that Xiao Xian was aware and she didn't want to lose this person, she might as well confide in her. Fifth Madam Shao, help me. Yeah. Xiao Xian was genuinely taken aback. She hadn't anticipated that He Jiqing would attempt to involve her in her schemes so abruptly. She couldn't help but find it somewhat admirable. When the time came to go all out, this girl showed no hesitation. As friends of eldest cousin, I can speak candidly to you. I genuinely care for eldest cousin. I may not possess the same background, talent, or looks as him, but I believe we are compatible. If Fifth Madam Shao assists me, I will certainly reciprocate in the future and repay your kindness. Fifth Master Shao has made remarkable progress in his career this year and has entered officialdom. He still has a bright future ahead. You have been to the capital before, so you must have witnessed it. The capital is filled with influential individuals, and there are countless low-ranking officials striving to climb the ranks. However, how many of them actually succeed? Without a strong background or connections, it becomes even more challenging to ascend to greater heights. If Fifth Madam Shao lends me a helping hand today, you won't lose out. Xianxia found herself both amused and annoyed. Madame Qiao had acted this way in the past, as had the Qiao family, the Tian family, and even the cousin standing before her. They all made similar claims in front of her and Xiao Yunduan. They exuded confidence, their words growing more grandiose with each passing moment. It was as if Xiao Yunduan would never be able to achieve greatness on his own. Xiao Xian wasn't so narrow-minded as to believe that one had to rely solely on oneself without any allies or connections, but there was a saying that people on different paths could not work together. Since their paths diverged, there was nothing more to discuss. For instance, this cousin exemplified such a case. Miss He, you needn't concern yourself with us. I will pretend that I never heard what you said today. Miss He, remember to leave the Xie family within 3 days. This is none of your business. Even if you don't help, you can't obstruct me like this. Xiao Xian responded calmly, because you are not worthy of Mr. Xie. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1050. Why? He Jiqing felt a wave of dizziness and almost let out a curse. I'm not worthy of my cousin? Ah, who do you think you are? What right do you have to say such things? Xiao Xian replied, it's not about who I am or who you are. What matters is Mr. Xie's own judgment. What do you think he would say about your actions today? He Jiqing seethed with anger and embarrassment. Which esteemed family is without blemish and can pass judgment on others? If Fifth Madam Shao believes that, she's naive. What's wrong with me employing a little trick? I had no other choice. I admit I intended to use Miss Shao, but I never intended to harm her. Xiao Xian was so infuriated that she burst into laughter. Miss He, you have exploited Tao Tao. A lady who is a guest, ended up falling into the water, a highly embarrassing situation. What did you do to her? Moreover, Tao Tao is not adept at swimming and you cannot guarantee that you could save her in time. What if she got injured as a result? Have you ever considered that? No, you haven't. You have used and sacrificed others for your own selfish interests, and you have the audacity to justify it. How shameless can you be? I don't know if esteemed families can maintain their purity, and you don't need to inform me about it. However, this is the first time I have encountered someone so self-centered and heartless, willing to use another person's life for personal gain. How dare you claim that you are worthy of eldest young Master Xie? I think you should give up as soon as possible. Eldest young Master Xie is not someone bound by conventions. He doesn't have any affection for you. Even if you resort to tricks, unless you're confident that you can deceive him, he will never marry you. So, do you have the confidence to deceive him? Xiao Xian's blunt words shocked He Jiqing. A dull ache throbbed in her chest, leaving her too disheartened to utter a word in response. Xiao Xian's words had struck a chord. This is my affair. It has nothing to do with you. You are obstructing my path to be with eldest cousin. Could it be that you have feelings for him? I advise you to give up immediately. At least I still have some hope, but you aren't even worthy of that. He Jiqing was so infuriated by Xiao Xian's words that she couldn't control herself any longer. Xiao Xian didn't respond with the same intensity as she had anticipated. Instead, she regarded He Jiqing with sympathy and said, why must you say such outrageous things? It doesn't change anything. Why force something that doesn't belong to you? This isn't a courtship, it's a lack of self-respect. He Jiqing quivered with anger. What do you know? You know nothing. Giving Xiao Xian a fierce glare, she stormed off. Xiao Xian's eyes flickered. She couldn't be sure if He Jiqing had truly heard her or not, but she had given her a deadline of 3 days. He Jiqing pretending to be deaf and mute wouldn't make a difference. If He Jiqing didn't leave the Xie family within 3 days, Xiao Xian would indeed inform Xie Jingrong. How could she not seek justice for Tao Tao, whom He Jiqing had tried to harm? Moreover, now that she was aware of He Jiqing's intentions, she couldn't simply stand by and watch her deceive Xie. Xianxia turned around and headed back to find Cao Cao. Little did she know that after she and He Jiqing had departed, Xie slowly emerged from behind the vine-covered rockery. His eyes flickered, his expression a mix of complexity. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1051, Speech? Xie Jingrong didn't intend to eavesdrop, but he happened to witness He Jiqing and Xiaoxian's conversation by the lake. He Jiqing appeared cunning and gloomy. Xie Jingrong had never held any affection for her, but his grandmother, mother, and sisters seemed to favor her, so he chose not to voice his dislike openly. Instead, he tried to avoid being alone with her whenever possible. However, he hadn't anticipated her audacity. Some time ago, during a half-drunken state after a banquet, he had briefly entertained the idea of playing a prank on her. Yet he quickly realized it was a disrespectful notion and rejected it. Since it involved her reputation and he hadn't truly suffered any harm, he didn't disclose the incident to anyone. However, he subtly hinted at it to his grandmother. Being perceptive, his grandmother promptly decided to send He Jiqing back to her own home. It wasn't that the Xie family couldn't provide for her, but they couldn't afford to support a wicked cousin. He Jiqing kept stalling, taking advantage of her grandmother's fondness for her, attempting to delay her departure. Yet, her grandmother remained resolute. Regardless of the delays, He Jiqing would eventually have to leave. When Xie Jingrong saw He Jiqing with Xiaoxian, he grew concerned that she might harbor ill intentions towards Xiaoxian. Thus he quietly approached her. However, he never expected to overhear such words. A smile crept across Xie Jingrong's face. Even without his intervention, Xiaoxian had managed to unnerve He Jiqing. If it weren't for Xiaoxian, he might never have discovered He Jiqing's true nature, her despicableness and shamelessness. Disgust welled up within Xie Jingrong. The following day, Xie Jingrong sought his grandmother once more. Madame Yuezhing arranged for a car to be prepared, ready to send He Jiqing away the following day. Caught off guard, He Jiqing felt a sense of guilt, but she didn't dare to insist. With anger in her heart, she left the Xie family. She believed that Xiaoxian must have divulged something to Xie Jingrong, which fueled her resentment. When Xiaoxian found Cao Cao and Xiaoman returned, she felt relieved. After a while, servants from First Madame Xie's household invited them to dinner, and they all went together. They spent the entire morning watching the show and discussing the 8 trigrams, which gradually warmed up the atmosphere. Miss Fang became less reserved and could respond with a smile now and then. After lunch they listened to 2 more scenes. As it neared 4 in the afternoon, everyone bid farewell one by one. As they left the Xie mansion and settled into the wagon, Miss Fang and Cao Cao couldn't help but relax, feeling quite tired once they let down the curtain. Miss Fang immediately turned to Xiaoxian and asked, "Ms. Chao, what did you think of my performance today? Did I make any mistakes? Will people gossip about me?" Cao Cao too was anxious. "And what about me, 5th sister-in-law? Don't hesitate to tell me." Xiaoxian found their concern amusing and replied, "Don't worry about me or Cao Cao. I have always conducted myself appropriately, so who would dare to laugh at me? Cao Cao, you did wonderfully as well. There's nothing to worry about. We can continue doing the same in the future." "Really?" "Absolutely. That's good," Miss Fang said with a smile. "As long as we avoid mistakes, I can relax. But dealing with such matters is truly challenging, even more exhausting than working in the fields. Oh dear, the fewer such incidents, the better. I can't handle them, honestly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1052, Preparing to Go Back. Xiao Taotao grasped the point Xiaoxian made. It's even more exhausting than working in the fields. Working in the fields had never made her feel tired. Xiaoxian suppressed her laughter. "I'm not seeking friendship from anyone, so let's be open about getting to know each other. If someone has high standards and wants to make things difficult for us, we don't have to accommodate them. So don't be nervous." Miss Fang felt relieved and replied with a smile, "That's true." As they discussed the wealth of the Xie family, Miss Fang couldn't help but sigh once again. She had never imagined that such a family could exist in this world. Cao Cao couldn't help but envy them. No other family could compare to the Xie family. Despite their limited experience, they could sense that this was what a true aristocratic family was like. The following day, accompanied by Shao Yunduan, they visited the Yuezhing family as guests and spent half a day in the city. Ms. Feng expressed her desire to go to Lingyuan Temple to burn incense and pray, so they all decided to go together. Ms. Feng was concerned about her family and felt it was best to return home as soon as possible. After all, there were only 2 girls at home, and while staying for 3 or 5 days was fine, it wouldn't be ideal to prolong their absence. Everyone agreed. After a few days in the provincial city, they had eaten their fill, bought what they needed, and indulged in some shopping. They were content and it was time to return. After Qiao Xian and Ms. Feng paid their respects at the temple, Shao Yunduan took Qiao Xian to explore the back of the mountain. The lush green pines and bamboo covered the mountains, while the spring water cascaded over rocks. Birds chirped and flowers swayed in the breeze. The 2 of them strolled, talking and laughing. Occasionally, Shao Yunduan would wrap his arms around Qiao Xian, showering her with affectionate kisses, causing her cheeks to blush. As they descended the mountain, Qiao Xian happily held a large bouquet of flowers he had picked for her. It was a sight filled with vibrant colors and beauty. When young Xianxia saw this, she envyingly asked for some to share, but Qiao Xian came up with an excuse to brush it off. Yuezhing Shao could send word to Shaoding village to inform them when the people who had gone south returned. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan couldn't afford to wait here indefinitely. First Madame understood their limited time and expressed her wish for them to stay a few more days. After all, it was a rare opportunity for the family to be together in the future. She had already arranged many gifts for Qiao Xian to take back and urged her to rest at home once she returned to the capital. Qiao Xian nodded, smiling in agreement. Upon their return to the village, Ms.Yan came to visit them. Yang Xiaoni offered her one of the items she had purchased as a gift. Although Yang Xiaoni still owed Ms. Yang 3 liang, Ms. Yang refused to accept the money. She kindly remarked that it was a small favor and didn't warrant repayment. Yang Xiaoni politely declined, expressing her gratitude with a smile. It wasn't that they were greedy for the money, but everyone in the first section of the family was well off and didn't need to be concerned about such small amounts. However, Ms. Yang's reasoning was sound, so Yang Xiaoni graciously accepted it. Yang Xiaoni gave Ms. Yang 2 packets of candied fruits, along with melon seeds and peanuts, which Ms. Yang accepted with a smile. Qiao Xian also presented Ms. Yang with a pair of silk flowers, 2 powder boxes and a pair of silver bracelets. Since Ms. Yan had always maintained a good relationship with the first section of the family, Ms. Niu, although resentful, recognized the benefits of maintaining a positive rapport. Therefore, she refrained from scolding Ms. Yan over this matter. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1053. Marriage? Regarding the first section of the family, they were grateful to Ms. Yan for providing them with advanced knowledge about various matters. Ms. Yan informed Ms. Feng and Qiao Xian about Shao Erlang's upcoming marriage. This was the first time Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni had heard about it, so they were eager to learn more. Yang Xiaoni couldn't help but complain, "Finally, second uncle's marriage has been settled. Auntie Niu keeps talking about finding good and outstanding girls from other families. Why do the girls always get chosen?" Ms. Su silently agreed with a smile. In the past, she had been somewhat tempted to introduce girls from her own family to Shao Erlang. After all, the second section of the family was now living a comfortable life. However, her timid nature held her back and she never voiced her thoughts. Ms. Yan smiled helplessly and sighed. She was well aware of the kind of person mother-in-law was, but she couldn't openly voice her complaints. Upon hearing that Shao Erlang's prospective wife was a widow, Yang Xiaoni was so surprised that her jaw almost dropped. Learning that she was Ms. Yanan's cousin, Yang Xiaoni smiled again. That's good, that's good. Since she's an acquaintance, she'll be able to get along well with you in the future." Ms. Feng chimed in with a smile. "Exactly. I believe this marriage is the best choice." If Shao Erlang had married a young girl, she would have been at the mercy of Ms. Niu's bullying. But widows were different. They had experienced the ups and downs of life. With Ms. Yan's support, it would be difficult for Ms. Niu to show off. The second section of the family kept Ms. Niu under control to ensure peace within the household. Observing their conversation, Ms. Su couldn't help but interject. "Well, Auntie Niu wasn't satisfied with many people, and she insisted on finding a good daughter-in-law for second brother Shao. Why did she agree in the end?" Ms. Yan smiled and replied, "It's fate. My cousin and my second brother met once and fell in love. Even my father-in-law liked her when my second brother expressed his desire to marry her. Mother-in-law initially refused, but she eventually gave in. That was indeed true. Miss Su decided to let go of her concerns and allowed Ms. Yan to handle everything as she pleased. In Ms. Zu's perspective, what did it matter if the prospective bride was a widow? Was she truly worth her worries and labor? Not fully understanding the meaning behind Ms. Yan's words, Miss Su simply nodded with a smile. I understand. As she counted the days, she realized that the wedding date was drawing near, with less than half a month remaining. Ms. Nyo had already distanced herself from the preparations. Since Ms. Yan had no prior experience with such matters, she felt a bit anxious and turned to Ms. Fong for assistance. She asked Ms. Fong to guide her and help her understand anything she found confusing. After a moment of contemplation, Ms. Fong agreed and advised, just keep it hidden from your mother-in-law and ensure she remains unaware. She had no desire to provoke her further. Ms. Yan readily agreed. It was only much later that Ms. Nyo discovered the extent of her daughter-in-law's assistance during Ms. Fang's wedding, which infuriated her to the point of falling ill. Ms. Fong was even more concerned about Cao Cao's family. That night, as she talked with Xiao Xian about Xiao Yunduan, she couldn't help but sigh. Ms. Fong was at a loss about what to do regarding Cao Cao's family. Now that her daughter had grown so capable, she appeared more intelligent and resourceful. Seeing her like this, Ms. Fong couldn't bear the thought of pairing her with a simple-minded country bumpkin who knew nothing. She felt that she would have treated Cao Cao unfairly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1054. Troubled? It wasn't that no one from the affluent family had come forward to reveal their intention of marriage. Therefore Ms. Fong hesitated to respond, fearing that she might be wrongly accused. Who in such a family didn't have a suitor or a potential match? Although she could find a promising partner from an ordinary farming family, Ms. Fong still had reservations. While the family was respectable, there was a possibility that her daughter might not be pleased with her background when she attended high school in the future. Furthermore, if the man in question didn't have a stable job or didn't achieve success, her daughter would suffer as a result. What would be the point of marrying such a man? Given that most businessmen were often unscrupulous and driven by impure motives, Ms. Fong couldn't ascertain their true intentions and was apprehensive. As a result, Cao Cao's marriage became a quandary. When Ms. Fong voiced her concerns, Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian exchanged glances. It was indeed a significant issue. Being Cao Cao's only sister, her family showered her with love and naturally desired for her to have a prosperous and trouble-free life through a good marriage. However, her maiden family worried about her living under someone else's roof. What Ms. Fong hadn't disclosed to Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan was that during the period when they had left home and come to the capital, her eldest uncle had nearly revealed information about Cao Cao's prospective marriage. The couple from the third section had ulterior motives. They had invited her eldest uncle to a dinner and attempted to get him intoxicated. That's when they broached the topic of Cao Cao's family. Eldest uncle was so elated that he readily agreed. They were discussing a well-to-do family in the neighboring village of Ms. Ma's family. Ms. Ma had requested eldest uncle to alter the invitation before informing Ms. Fong, but eldest uncle wasn't foolish enough to disclose it to her the next day. He believed that there was nothing wrong with revealing it. The other party belonged to an affluent family and was an ideal match for Cao Cao. What could possibly go wrong? Besides, how could his third sister-in-law and brother deceive their family? They had made the introduction, so there surely wouldn't be any issues. When eldest uncle informed Ms. Fong about the matter, he boasted about it, emphasizing how well third brother and third sister-in-law treated Cao Cao and how much they cared for her. Ms. Fong, who had always been skeptical of them, was startled by these words. She hurriedly went to the third branch to confront Ms. Ma, and they engaged in a heated argument, eventually causing Ms. Ma to back down. She had no right to interfere in her own daughter's affairs. Regarding what Ms. Ma was referring to, eldest uncle refused to acknowledge it. If Ms. Ma liked it so much, she should just arrange for her own daughter to marry into that family. Ms. Fong wasn't concerned about whether the family was rich or not. What she knew was that Ms. Ma had ulterior motives, and whatever she had promised couldn't be anything good. As long as she understood this, it was enough for her to make the right judgment. Eldest uncle was merely engaging in casual conversation, and there was no involvement of a matchmaker or an exchange of formal invitations. Ms. Fong made her stance clear, and that should have been the end of the matter. However, that wasn't the case. Ms. Ma held a grudge and secretly wished for something unfavorable to happen. Yet, she still went to discuss the marriage with the Sun family. The Sun family was ecstatic and proceeded to invite a matchmaker to the first section of the Shao family for the exchange of invitations and marriage discussions. They were eager to marry off Tao Tao as soon as possible. This greatly infuriated Ms. Fong, and she promptly asked the matchmaker to leave, stating that it was all a misunderstanding. What marriage? Absolutely not. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1055. A Mistake. Suppressing her anger, Ms. Fong maintained a pleasant demeanor in front of the matchmaker. Tao Tao had to rely on the matchmaker to find a suitable match, so she couldn't afford to offend her. Who knew what the matchmaker might say otherwise? Initially, the matchmaker was perplexed about how the Sun family could arrange a marriage with the highly recommended Shao family. They might even become relatives of an advanced scholar in the future. She had approached the situation with skepticism. Upon hearing Miss Fang's words, the matchmaker breathed a sigh of relief and left without saying anything further. She wasn't foolish and could discern that Miss Fong was suppressing her anger. The Sun family, truly, this was the first encounter between the matchmaker and the Sun family, so they were taken aback and somewhat enraged. They insisted that they had reached an agreement regarding the marriage, so how could the first section of the family renege on their word? The matchmaker remained unconvinced and couldn't help but inquire, did recommended man Shao's parents genuinely consent to this marriage? The wife of the Sun family retorted, it was recommended man Shao's third aunt-in-law who personally informed us that her elder brother agreed. Otherwise we wouldn't have invited you. We can't back down now. Although our Sun family may not be as prestigious as theirs, we're not ones to be casually bullied or trifled with. The matchmaker understood everything. Being well acquainted with all the villages and familiar with the local customs, she couldn't help but chuckle. No wonder. You might not be aware, but the first section, second section, and third section of the Shao family have always had a strained relationship, particularly the second section, who have engaged in many inappropriate actions and severed ties with the first section. I suspect the third section of the family isn't heeding your wishes. They might be attempting to deceive you. The daughter-in-law of the Sun family grew displeased upon hearing this. But they're biological brothers. How can you say such things? Isn't what this brother-in-law's daughter-in-law said the truth? It doesn't make sense. Observing the tension, the matchmaker pursed her lips and refrained from further comments. As expected, Mrs. Sun was determined to go to Shaoding village and confront eldest uncle and Ms. Fong. She even rallied some members of the Sun family to accompany her. Ms. Fong chose to ignore their actions. Instead, she sought the assistance of the land officer and the village elders to mediate the situation with Ms. Ma and uncover the whole truth. Ms. Fong insisted on waiting for Shao Yunduan to return and make the final decision, as per Shao Yunduan's wishes before his departure. He had made it clear that he wouldn't consider marrying Tao Tao until his return. As Tao Tao's mother, Ms. Fong was in the dark about the entire situation. However, Ms. Ma, being Tao Tao's aunt, had already made the promise. It simply didn't make sense. If Ms. Fong wasn't present, eldest uncle might have given in to Ms. Ma and third uncle's demands. But with Ms. Fang's presence, he couldn't side with his wife. Therefore, he decided that they would discuss the matter when Shao Yunduan returned. If Shao Yunduan had no objections, then the marriage would proceed. However, soon enough, Ms. Fong discovered that epilepsy ran in the Sun family. Members of the Sun family, including Madame Sun's father-in-law, Madame Sun's husband, and the intended groom for Tao Tao, all suffered from this illness. When it flared up, they would convulse on the ground, foaming at the mouth and rolling their eyes. It was a frightening sight. If Tao Tao were to marry into the Sun family, there was a high probability that her son would also inherit this illness. Even if her son escaped it, her grandson would likely be affected. There was no known cure for this condition. Enraged by this revelation, Ms. Fong scolded eldest uncle and dragged him to the third branch, where she slapped Ms. Ma twice. The following day, she arranged for the village representatives to confront Ms. Ma at the Sun family and bring the truth to light. The wedding arrangements were no longer going to proceed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1056, Stone on the Feet. It was out of the question for Cao Cao to marry someone afflicted with an illness. Were the Sun family taking advantage of the fact that there were no influential figures in Shaoding Village? The village chief and elders of Shaoding Village were also incensed. They reprimanded third Uncle Shao and Madame Ma for their disrespect. Cao Cao was the sister of High Scholar Shao, and she might even be the sister of an advanced scholar Shao. How could she be married off to such a person? This was a direct insult to her fifth brother. As Cao Cao's biological sister, what kind of esteemed family could she be married into? The Sun family was undoubtedly in the wrong. Moreover, the marriage had never been finalized, it was merely mentioned informally. If the Shao family was unwilling, then it wouldn't happen. No one could argue otherwise. The Sun family displayed great arrogance. Madame Sun even shouted, "There's nothing wrong with our family. If you break your promise like this, it will tarnish your daughter's reputation. In the future, if you can't find a suitable family, come back and seek us out. It won't be so easy then." Ms. Fang was infuriated but couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Don't worry, my daughter isn't concerned about getting married. And who are you to question my integrity? Go confront whoever fed you this information. Throughout history, when it comes to marriage, it has been the parents who act as matchmakers. I have never heard of parents being bypassed, only for the neighbor's aunt to have the final say. What a ridiculous notion." Ms. Ma interjected, "Sister-in-law, you can't say that. Elder brother has already agreed to it." Ms. Fang retorted sharply, "Our families are worlds apart, or do you think I'm unaware of that? Did you forget about me when I'm away from home? You may inform your elder brother, but why did you hide it from me? I explicitly told you not to mention it again, yet you still came to my house to sow discord. What are you trying to achieve?" Ms. Fang sneered as she pointed at Ms. Ma and addressed Mrs. Sun. "My sister-in-law hails from a respected family, and her son is a promising scholar. He has a bright future ahead of him. If you're curious about their opinion, why not ask her? If she's so content with your family, she'd likely be willing to marry off her own daughter." Ms. Ma was taken aback. "What are you talking about? You don't want to?" Ms. Fang's anger flared even higher. "If you're unwilling, how dare you claim that you're acting in Cao Cao's best interest? Our Cao Cao has a brother who's on his way to becoming an advanced scholar. Isn't he more suitable than your daughter?" "You." Ms. Fang's words ignited a furious response from Ms. Ma. Mrs. Sun's eyes gleamed with excitement as she looked at Ms. Ma, feeling a surge of confidence. She dared not entertain thoughts about the first section of the Shao family. If Ms. Fang didn't agree, then recommended man and the advanced scholar wouldn't agree either. Moreover, the entire Shaoding village would rally behind them. Most importantly, there had been no formal exchange of invitations between their families, and Ms. Fang had never given her consent to this marriage. Cao Cao wasn't the least bit concerned about her reputation being affected. Mrs. Sun couldn't intimidate her. So what if she refused to give up? Though she was quite adept at causing trouble, little did she expect that the Fang family would stir up even more trouble. She couldn't emerge victorious, however. Since Ms. Ma had brought up the topic of marriage, it was only natural for her to seek clarification, right? Ms. Fang sneered, no longer invested in this matter, and firmly instructed eldest uncle to refrain from interfering. He wasn't allowed to mention anything about Cao Cao's marriage ever again. Eldest uncle didn't utter a word, but he couldn't shake off his lingering annoyance. He wasn't foolish, yet he didn't want to view his second and third brothers in an overly negative light. Somehow he still held on to the belief that they weren't entirely to blame. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1057. Sad and disappointed. Every time something occurred, eldest uncle convinced himself that his brothers didn't intend it, that they must have had their reasons. Perhaps they were unaware of how things would escalate and didn't mean any harm. After all, despite women being known for their pettiness and scheming, the three of them were blood relatives. In their youth, second brother and third brother had respected and listened to him so much. Though they often quarreled, they never dared to lay a hand on him. He would always step in to mediate. Those were good times. How did it all change? He refused to believe it, or rather, he didn't want to believe it. Yet, with each passing event, his confidence teetered on the brink of collapse. He relied on his own convictions and support, but his two brothers repeatedly undermined him. He could no longer contain his emotions. As much as he wished to trust them, he had no choice but to surrender to the truth. The harsh reality hit him the hardest. He wanted to avoid it, but it was impossible. This matter involved his children. How could he evade it? Eldest uncle was overcome with disappointment and anguish, rendering him unusually quiet. Misinterpreting his silence as guilt, Miss Fong, infuriated, paid no attention to him. She desired nothing more than his silence. Only when he promised not to interfere in the family affairs concerning the children did Miss Fong find some solace. Miss Sun proved to be clingy indeed. While Miss Fong observed the unfolding drama from the sidelines, she gathered her composure and made sure Ms. Ma faced the consequences. Ms. Ma was filled with anger, regret, and fear. How could she not be frightened? Cao Cao had Shao Yunduan to protect her, so her reputation was of little concern. However, it was different for her daughter, Shao Xiaoji. She had attempted to use Shao Lulang to intimidate the Sun family's wife, but how could a mere student like Shao Lulang possibly intimidate the wife of the Sun family? In a state of desperation, Ms. Ma contemplated following Miss Fang's lead in seeking assistance, only to be scolded by the land officer and the village elders. The land officer, elders, and others were not present to resolve trivial matters for everyone. Interfering in such affairs would only burden them with endless trivialities in the future. They would be utterly exhausted. Troubles should be resolved individually. Ms. Ma grew infuriated and decided to approach the first section of the family for a discussion. This action provoked a hot-tempered female elder who sneered and retorted, "What can you say? Who in this village can compare to the recommended man's family? If you want to be considered on par with them, start by donating 400 acres of family land to the clan and contributing a few hundred taels of silver to the village school. Only then, when you come seeking help again, we might consider assisting you. Don't be deluded. The recommended man's family has made tremendous contributions to our village. Even if he is not present, how can the village turn a blind eye when his mother requests assistance?" Her words struck a chord in Ms. Ma's heart. However, how could she produce 400 acres of family farmland and a few hundred taels of silver? She didn't possess such resources, and even if she did, parting with them would be unbearable. When Shao Yunduan undertook such actions, she secretly ridiculed him, but now she felt the sting of her own hypocrisy. Left with no choice, Ms. Ma reluctantly compensated Mrs. Sun with 30 liang and left the matter unresolved. She felt immense remorse for the money spent and, along with third uncle, approached eldest uncle in private to express their grievances, hoping he would make amends. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1058. Waiting? But eldest uncle informed them that he had no money and that all the money in the household belonged to Ms. Fong. As a result, they hesitated to ask Ms. Fong for it, fearing they might face physical retribution. Ms. Ma and third uncle grew even more frustrated. They didn't dare to approach Ms. Fong for the money. They would likely end up enduring a few slaps instead. Ms. Fong, aware of their loss of 30 liang, coldly smiled and felt a sense of relief. Since she had recently severed ties with the second section of the family, it wasn't the right time to cut off her relationship with the third section. Thus Ms. Fong chose not to mention it. In short, the third section had brought trouble upon themselves, and they were the ones suffering the consequences. Ms. Fong didn't want Shao Yunduan to be bothered by this issue, so she refrained from informing him or Qiao Xian about it, nor did she allow her family to mention it. Nevertheless, she took Cao Cao's family matter seriously. Shao Yunduan had become an official with a promising future. With Qi being absent, many people had their eyes on Cao Cao. It was needless to say that the second section of the family was no longer suitable. The third section had learned their lesson and no longer entertained the idea. However, Ms. Fong worried about the possibility of someone intentionally luring Cao Cao. Cao Cao was an innocent girl who had never experienced the world, so there was concern about her being seduced. That was Ms. Fang's primary worry. After expressing her thoughts, Ms. Fong let out a sigh. "Think it over and decide for me. What should we do about Cao Cao? It would be wonderful if we could settle this before you come to the capital." Hearing these words, Shao Yunduan and Xiao Xian exchanged glances and smiled helplessly. Marriage wasn't something that could be resolved so easily, especially when it involved Cao Cao. Being the only girl in the family, Shao Yunduan couldn't afford to be careless. Even if Cao Cao married a man of questionable character and had her family's support, it would ultimately bring her pain and suffering. After Ms. Fong departed, Xiao Xian gazed at Shao Yunduan with a smile. "This is quite a challenging situation, isn't it?" Shao Yunduan nodded and pulled her into his embrace. You always have brilliant ideas. Why don't you share your thoughts with me? Xianxia pondered for a moment. I believe there is no one in the surrounding villages, including the county city, who is truly deserving of Tao Tao. Shao Yunduan. He didn't know whether to laugh or sigh, but upon careful consideration, Xiaoxian's observation seemed to hold some truth. Darling, don't forget. Xiaoxian swatted away his playful hands. Tao Tao has a substantial amount of personal wealth, at least 1,000 taels, right? When she gets married, her family will provide a generous dowry, and we will contribute significantly as well. So, who else in the countryside can measure up to her? Xiaoxian continued, furthermore, look at how skilled Tao Tao has become. She knows everything, especially when it comes to making lipstick. She has mastered the entire process. I only shared with her the ratio of beeswax and flower juice. Even after she marries, she should remain in control of this matter. However, she needs to be cautious about the family she marries into. What concerns me the most is whether her husband's family might attempt to secretly learn the process when they see the money involved, or even exploit it to harm Tao Tao. But if we forbid her from intervening in this matter because she's married, won't she feel miserable? Xiaoxian's decision to pass down the entire process to Tao Tao stemmed from her lack of trust in Ms. Su. Ms. Su and Yang Xiaoni were sisters-in-law, and if Yang Xiaoni were the one to inherit the knowledge, Ms. Su would become the sister-in-law. How could she accept that? Conflicts within the family were bound to arise. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1059, Into Mountains. However, Ms. Su was different from Yang Xiaoni. Yang Xiaoni was stubborn and would listen to Xiaoxian but not Ms. Su. After all, they were aware of the profitability of the lipstick business, even if they didn't have complete knowledge. If Ms. Su were to discover it, she might secretly inform her own family. Xiaoxian couldn't take such a risk. The two sisters-in-law decided not to disclose the information to anyone but Tao Tao. Moreover, Tao Tao was more intelligent than both of them, so she quickly grasped the concepts and performed exceptionally well. Most importantly, Tao Tao had a genuine passion for learning it herself. When Xiaoxian mentioned her plans to teach Tao Tao, the girl was thrilled to the point of almost jumping up. She couldn't sleep the entire night due to her excitement. Once she began learning, she displayed immense energy and meticulousness. Tao Tao possessed inherent intelligence that should not have gone to waste. Xiaoxian had no regrets about imparting this skill to her. After all, would it be beneficial for Tao Tao to spend her whole life solely engaged in farming, household chores, child-rearing, and catering to men's needs? The couple contemplated for a while and finally informed Ms. Feng that Tao Tao was only 16 years old, so she was still quite young. They suggested waiting for another 2 years or so. Should they continue searching within the next 2 years? Perhaps they would find a suitable candidate? If within the next 2 years they couldn't find an ideal match, they would settle for someone who met about 60% to 70% of their expectations. Ms. Feng understood that this matter couldn't be resolved immediately, so she sighed and had no other choice. However, when Tao Tao learned about it, she blushed and secretly confided in Xiaoxian that she didn't want to get married so early. Hearing this, Xiaoxian took the opportunity to have a heart-to-heart conversation with her. She encouraged Tao Tao to express her thoughts about marriage to her mother. Regardless of the family in question, it was crucial for Tao Tao to genuinely like the potential match. She could also explore more frequently. With business in the province, she could visit and see if there was anything she could gain from it. However, she had to be cautious and not easily fall prey to deception. When venturing out in the provincial city, she shouldn't go alone. He proceeded to enlighten her about the tricks employed by swindlers and scoundrels. Tao Tao felt a bit dizzy and even more embarrassed. Nevertheless, she nodded earnestly. Fifth sister-in-law was correct. This was her personal matter. How could she not take it seriously? It would determine the course of her life. Even though Qi was not present, Xiaoxian couldn't resist the urge to venture into the mountains. However, she felt too bashful to bring it up. Observing this, Shao Yunduan inwardly chuckled. He intended to take her on a mountain hike, stating that it would be a way for her to relax. Xiaoxian was thrilled. This was the season for an abundance of bamboo shoots, mushrooms and ripe wild fruits, making it an opportune time to gather them. The mountains were teeming with countless wild fruits and berries, many of which lacked proper names. They were simply referred to in the local dialect, casually and nonchalantly. However, these wild fruits had delightful flavors. They were tangy and sweet, juicy and succulent, soft and sweet, or possessed a unique refreshing taste. Every ripening season, they enticed numerous children from the village to venture into the mountains for picking. Of course, the village children usually didn't stray too far into the mountains. Given Xianxia's ability to cultivate anything within her space, she planned to grow some fruit trees and shrubs as well. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1060 Things? It would be incredibly convenient to have access to these fruits whenever she desired. Additionally, there were an array of fresh and sweet raspberries, and marchberries. There were also ground twists, milk fruits, goat milk fruits, ground loquats, sour dates, glutinous rice noodles, cold rice lumps, and more. Despite their unassuming appearance, being wild and hailing from the mountainous areas, they were often overlooked, yet their taste was truly delightful. Since she had the ability to cultivate within her space, why not take advantage of it? In the future she could enjoy these fruits at any time and even bring them along. Just the thought of it filled her with joy. Xianxia pondered which excuse she should employ to venture into the mountains when Shao Yunduan brought it up. Although it was merely a hike, she would have the final say on the route once they entered the mountains. However, Shao Yunduan was no longer the same person he once was, so Miss Fang disagreed with his proposal. Nevertheless, witnessing Shao Yunduan's excitement, she realized how precious his return was. She didn't know when he would have the opportunity to return again, so she couldn't bear to turn him down. Thus, she instructed Shao Dalong, Shao Sanlang, Yang Xiaoni, Tao Tao, and others to accompany him and not venture too deep into the mountains or stay there for too long. Afterward, she hurriedly made her way back. She even contemplated enlisting a few young men from the village to accompany them. Xiao Xian sighed inwardly. Shao Yunduan found himself caught between laughter and tears. "Mom, you don't have to do this. I'm not that clueless. I grew up in the village and have been to the mountains countless times." "You're exaggerating." However, Miss Fang insisted, "You're not the same as before. You're not the same as before. You used to stumble, but now you can't afford to stumble. What if something unfortunate happens?" No, I'm just being silly. It doesn't count." Shao Dalong and Shao Sanlang concurred with Miss Fang's sentiments. She gazed at Shao Yunduan as if he were a delicate treasure. Xiao Xian couldn't contain her amusement any longer and playfully winked at Shao Yunduan. The young official, the hope of the entire village, truly lived up to his noble status. How could she possibly compare? In the end, despite Shao Yunduan's insistence, they decided against summoning the villagers. However, Shao Dalong, Shao Sanlang, Yang Xiaoni, and the others were required to accompany them and were prohibited from staying in the mountains for too long. Shao Yunduan had no choice but to agree. As they ventured into the mountains, Xiao Xian's spirit soared. She found delight in every corner and wore an unwavering smile. Tao Tao, Yang Xiaoni, and the others were equally joyous. "It's been so long since I last came here. I've missed it dearly." "You're absolutely right. It's a shame Chi isn't here. When Chi returns, fifth brother and fifth sister-in-law, you must come again with us." Laughter and conversation filled the air. They gathered wild bamboo shoots and collected an abundance of mushrooms. They also plucked ripe wild fruits and berries, savoring their flavors. Although they refrained from hunting wild animals, they found their experience to be immensely fulfilling. Xiao Xian snapped off branches of wild fruits and berries, placing them into her space. She had acquired everything she desired. Upon returning home, she planned to allocate time to neatly plant each item. The prospect left her feeling immensely satisfied. During this season, wild mushrooms were not particularly abundant, but there was an abundance of bamboo shoots in various sizes. Once blanched, the bamboo shoots would be shredded or cut into finger-length segments. Stir-fried with preserved vegetables and cured meat, they made for a truly exquisite delicacy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1061, That's My Feeling. The chestnut bamboo shoots were delicately sliced and used to make a refreshing soup, boasting a delightful sweetness. As for the other dishes, they were sliced and soaked in clear water overnight, ready to be stir-fried with chili peppers and meat slices. These dishes were truly unparalleled. Shao Dalong, being an upright man, remembered his mother's instructions. Sensing that it was almost time, he urged everyone to head home. However, Xiao Xian, Shao Yunduan, and the others were not ready to leave. Since Yang Xiaoni and the rest rarely ventured into the mountains, they had become engrossed in gathering plants and were determined to fill their sacks and baskets. Occasionally they startled pheasants and wild rabbits that were foraging in the grass and woods. Helplessly they watched as the pheasants took flight, flapping their wings, and the wild rabbits swiftly vanished from sight. Sighs of regret filled the air. They finally understood why others envied them when they returned with a bountiful catch of wild animals. Such was the current sentiment. Helpless yearning welled up within them, but they couldn't attain what they desired. It was simply an insatiable craving. Of course, Xiao Xian felt this most profoundly. After all, others were limited in the number of pheasants and wild rabbits they encountered. Unlike her, she had witnessed countless. There were not only pheasants and wild rabbits, but also hares, wild sheep, wild boars and more. In the past, with Qi by her side, she could easily secure a successful hunt if she led the way. Once they had enjoyed themselves and amassed a fruitful harvest, they made their way back to the village. Ms. Fang stood at the village entrance, eagerly awaiting their return. Upon seeing their joyous expressions, she held back her reproachful words. Never mind. She wouldn't dampen the mood this time, but she wouldn't allow it to happen again in the future. Shao Yunduan, not wanting his mother to worry, took Xiao Xian to explore the nearby hills for 3 or 4 days. The two of them strolled hand in hand, undisturbed by anyone, enjoying their time amidst the lush green mountains. Each day, Xiao Xian would request her family to gather the ingredients, and if needed, Xianxia would travel to the city to purchase them. Xiao Xian would then cook 2 of her finest dishes, and they would savor the flavors together. Sesame chicken, ginger-infused duck, pickled vegetables, conch broth, lion's head meatballs, braised pork, seafood soup, braised fish head, braised pig's trotters and many more dishes made dinner a delightful anticipation for the family each day. In the blink of an eye, it was time for Shao Erlang's wedding. Ms. Niu, being a playful character, had conveniently fallen ill 2 days prior, claiming she couldn't do anything and needed to stay in bed. Shao Erlang knew that his mother had reservations about his marriage to Mei Qing, so he attempted to ask her to handle the matter for him. However, Ms. Niu scolded him, saying, "You have a wife now and you've forgotten about your mother. I showered you with love for nothing. Can't you see that I'm unwell and unable to move? Do you expect me to take care of it for you? Do you want me to exhaust myself to death? If you really want me to handle it, fine. Why don't we change the date? We can reschedule it. Once I'm better, we can manage it together." Shao Erlang's expression darkened and he fell silent. All right. Ms.Yan paid no mind to the situation. She had been in charge of most things from the beginning to the end. If there was something she didn't understand, she sought assistance from Ms. Fang. Seeing Ms. Fang's willingness to help, the villagers enthusiastically lent their support, ensuring everything went smoothly. Since Ms. Niu insisted on feigning illness, they let her be. As the bride and groom were soon to be married again, there was no need to be overly fussy about the arrangements. In fact, they didn't bother with any elaborate preparations at all. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1062, Shao Erlang's Marriage? There were only about 10 tables set up for the wedding banquet, where their neighbors, close relatives and friends were treated to a meal. Thus, on the day of the bridal escort, everything proceeded as usual. Ms. Niu was so furious that she didn't even make an appearance. Initially, Mei Qing felt a bit disgusted, but when Ms. Yan brought her dinner, she reassured her with a smile. "Cousin, no, second sister-in-law, let her be. Our mother-in-law has always been like this. The more she goes overboard, the guiltier second brother feels towards you, and that's a good thing. I don't believe we can't handle her." Ms. Yan winked at her and Mei Qing smiled back, feeling much better. Even if Shao Erlang couldn't handle the situation, he would undoubtedly feel remorseful after being mistreated today, making it easier to deal with Ms. Niu. Mei Qing firmly held Ms. Yan's hands and sighed, saying, "Jiao, you and I are family now. I will never forget your kindness. Let's live a good life from now on." Ms. Yan understood that Mei Qing was referring to her own family, so she replied with a smile, "Sister-in-law, don't say that. There is no need to mention kindness. Honestly, if second brother were to marry someone else, why shouldn't it be you, sister-in-law? We're already familiar with each other, aren't we?" "That's true." The two of them exchanged smiles and glanced at each other. Even though Ms. Niu was ill and absent, it didn't impact the overall situation. Second marriages were not highly valued to begin with, so Mei Qing didn't feel too aggrieved. Even if others gossiped, their words held limited weight. Mei Qing was no longer the naive and ignorant young lady from her teenage years. She regarded her dignity with great seriousness and paid no heed to gossip. Initially, she thought she would spend the rest of her life as a widow, living cautiously under the care of her brothers, sisters-in-law, and nephews. Although they didn't despise her, their fondness for her was limited. She had to tread carefully each day, enduring inevitable hardships. Even if Mei Qing were to find another family to marry, it was unlikely that she would have a good match. At best, it would be a compromise. Unexpectedly, she had managed to secure such a favorable marriage. Even if her mother-in-law feigned illness and skipped the wedding banquet, Mei Qing had no objections. At this point, Mei Qing could officially be considered a member of the second branch of the family. Ms. Niu was indeed a troublemaker. Mei Qing could endure it, but the more she endured, the more arrogant Ms. Niu became. Then one day Shao Erlang saw Ms. Niu kneeling in the yard as a form of punishment. Shao Erlang was furious. Ms. Niu's cousin, Ms. Niu Sr., had been sitting next to Ms. Fang with a smile since she arrived. Somehow, upon hearing that Shao Yunduan had been appointed as an official in the capital, she said with a smile, "Old Master Primus is so far away from the capital, and it's not good to have no one from our place. Mr. Primus, don't forget the customs of your hometown." Ms. Fang was taken aback and responded with a smile, "My fifth son is not that kind of person. He will never forget his roots." "I'm not forgetting my roots. Wouldn't it be nice to have a fellow villager with me, someone I can feel close to within a region?" Seeing Ms. Fang looking at her, Ms. Niu Sr. grew excited and said with a smile, "My daughter is only 16 years old this year, and she's beautiful, well-mannered, and hard-working. Sister-in-law, all you have to do is give your approval and let her come to your house tomorrow. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1064, Targeted? It is indeed a blessing for her to have the opportunity to follow Mr. Primus and take care of him. It doesn't matter whether she becomes the second or third section of the family. Sister-in-law, you're a practical person, and Mr. Primus is also kind-hearted. He would never mistreat her. When my youngest daughter was little, a traveling Taoist priest even bestowed his fortune upon her. He said that she would encounter a benefactor in her life and would surely have a noble son in the future. She will be blessed abundantly. Haha, sister-in-law, look, this is not what she should be doing. Speaking of nobles, who could be more distinguished than the Primus? Ms. Niu Sr. didn't believe that Ms. Fang wouldn't be concerned about the Primus child since his wife hadn't given birth yet. Her daughter was blessed and leading a good life. Ms. Niu Sr. wasn't worried that she wouldn't be enticed. Ms. Niu Sr. felt quite proud. Surprisingly, Ms. Niu Sr. wasn't the only visitor to Ms. Fang today. Everyone witnessed how the Shao family transformed from an ordinary farming family into an illustrious one. Shao Yunduan, who believed he was fortunate to be chosen as the first Primus, couldn't attribute it solely to luck. Yang Xiani's former siblings and sister-in-law were so ashamed that they wanted to bang their heads against the wall. Initially, everyone was resentful and envious, but now their envy was complete. Since the officials had already gone to the capital, what was there to doubt? While they were envious, they couldn't help but feel excited. If they could establish some connections, would they have to worry in the future? Many people had their eyes on Shao Yunduan the moment he returned. The Primus held an official position in the capital, so it was only natural for him to take a concubine. Furthermore, since Miss Xiao hadn't given birth, how could she tolerate someone else? If their own daughter gives birth to a son before him, they would become the eldest son. Why should they fear not receiving affection? While others might have had similar intentions, they didn't dare to voice them aloud. However, Ms. Niu Sr. couldn't contain herself and said it with a smile. As Ms. Niu Sr. spoke, she even mentioned all the traveling Taoists, though no one knew if they were genuine or not. Nevertheless, everyone worried that Ms. Fang might believe them, so they began recommending their own daughters. My daughter is also highly capable and knows how to take care of others. My daughter is renowned for her beauty in our village. All the girls who marry from our family are well-mannered. My youngest daughter will undoubtedly be the same. And as for my household, observing this, Ms. Niu Sr. became both angry and anxious. She exclaimed, "You're all so wicked. I was the first to suggest it. Why are you fighting over it? It's utterly unreasonable. Why would others fear her words? Oh, Auntie Nyo, it's you who's being unreasonable. So what if you mentioned it first? Claiming it's your house? What a joke. That's correct. We should decide whose daughter it is. If you're afraid of comparisons, then don't say anything. My daughter is the finest. Our family is excellent. Ms. Nyo Sr. was so furious that she nearly got into a physical altercation. Miss Fang became so angered that she burst into laughter and snapped, "Stop arguing. It's Erlang's day today, and we're all here for the wedding banquet and celebration. Why are you making such a ruckus?" Immediately, someone flattered her. After all, she's sister-in-law Fang. What she said makes sense. Absolutely. The others didn't want to be left behind. That's right, that's right. If you have something to say, say it. It's unsightly to be so noisy. Absolutely correct. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1065, Humiliation. Ms. Fang sneered, "My fifth son and Miss Xiao are content with their relationship and have no intentions of taking concubines. Don't assume that my fifth son lacks such intentions. I have no such intentions either. Your daughter is lovely, tell her to become the daughter-in-law of another family. Don't utter such words in my presence. If anyone says otherwise, don't blame me for scolding you. I have a temper and you're well aware of it. If anyone desires to be scolded, go ahead and speak up." Miss Fang had always been sharp-tongued. Everyone exchanged glances and fell silent. Many people were merely trying to join in the conversation without genuine intentions. Upon hearing Miss Fang's words, they realized they couldn't attain what they desired, so they felt relieved and refrained from saying more. However, Ms. Nyo Sr. was different. She harbored deep envy towards the Shao family's first section. They possessed an official position, acquired land, and even donated fertile land and substantial amounts of silver to the village. How much personal wealth did they possess to give away 400 acres of land and hundreds of taels of silver without hesitation? For instance, at the previous banquet, there was an abundance of poultry and fish. The gentry and elderly masters showered them with countless gifts, worth a significant sum alone. In the future, even if their family didn't engage in farming, they could enjoy meals with white rice and meat. They wouldn't have to skimp on cooking vegetables, oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar. What an enviable life. Furthermore, at the banquet, her daughter had developed feelings for Shao Yunduan. Come to think of it, when the second section of the family celebrated their daughter-in-law's marriage, her family attended the wedding banquet as well. Her daughter and Shao Yunduan must have met on that occasion, which was even better. They were acquainted with each other. Ms. Nyo Sr. believed that the Shao family had no relation to others, but her own family was different. She was a relative of the Shao family, so no matter what she said, Miss Fang wouldn't refuse her. While everyone else remained silent, Ms. Nyo Sr. couldn't help but giggle and jokingly say, "Sister-in-law Fang, don't get angry. This is a serious matter. If the Primus doesn't have any wives or concubines, won't it be embarrassing for him? We know each other well in the village, so doesn't that mean, shut up?" Ms. Fang's expression turned stern before Ms. Nyo Sr. could finish her sentence. She sneered, "If you want your daughter to become someone's concubine, there might be someone willing to have her. Don't say such things to me. I don't want her." Embarrassment washed over Ms. Nyo Sr., her face alternating between red and white. Angered, she retorted, "Sister-in-law, you're being too dismissive. Don't think so highly of yourself. Will the Primus never take a concubine in his entire life?" Miss Fang replied firmly, "That's right, he will never take a concubine in his entire life. My fifth son is not the kind of person who forgets his roots or his identity after becoming the Primus. Why should he take a concubine?" Gritting her teeth, Ms. Nyo Sr. warned, "Sister-in-law, remember what you've said. Don't contradict yourself in the future." Miss Fang reassured, "Don't worry, I won't." Ms. Nyo Sr. sneered, what if, Ms. Nyo Sr. didn't dare to voice her thoughts about Xiao Xian not giving birth, so she abruptly stood up and left. Despite her anger, she remained rational. If she dared to utter those words, Miss Fang would definitely slap her. And she certainly didn't dare to retaliate. Miss Fang cast a disdainful glance at her departing figure. What nonsense. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1066. Rejection? Ms.Yan happened to come over and greeted her with a smile. Everyone let out a sigh of relief and forgot about the matter. Ms. Nyo Sr. was humiliated in front of everyone, so who would dare to talk about it? They didn't even dare to do so anymore. But some people did not give up and went to Ms. Fong in private to boast about their daughter, saying that they could bring their daughter to show Ms. Fong, so it was fine if Ms. Fong was not satisfied. Ms. Fong turned them all down. She did not have such thoughts at all. Why was she looking at his daughter? How wicked. Shao Yunduan had told her in detail that although he was an official in the capital, he was just a minor official. A minor official like him had at least 1,000 people in the capital, so it was nothing. She was even less arrogant. It was still too early for her son to go further in the future. Xianxia knew about it too, so she took Shao Yunduan's hand and sobbed. Do you think I didn't give birth to a son or a daughter for you? Look, so many people feel that you've suffered and are rushing to give you a new wife. Shao Yunduan was caught between laughter and tears as he comforted her with his arms around her. We don't care about anyone else, but you can care about me. I don't know how to do that. Besides, we have only been married for a short time, so we don't have any children yet. Don't let one's imagination run wild. Xiao Xian got teary-eyed and grabbed the chink in one's armor. What if we have been married for 2 or 3 years and have no children? Then you are going to take concubines and make me angry? No. Of course not. I think that's what you meant earlier. Absolutely not. Shao Yunduan kissed her face, lips, eyebrows and refused to let go. You are my wife, so of course I only want you. What if we don't have any children in the future? Don't talk nonsense. Shao Yunduan covered her mouth. There will not be any. Xiao Xian was not convinced. What if? There's no what if. Bah. Xiao Xian was not convinced. What if? That was not something that could be controlled by human power. What if? The more Xiao Xian thought about it, the more confused she became. She was pretending to cry, but she actually ended up squeezing out a few tears. Shao Yunduan was caught between laughter and tears. What if? But, no buts. If, there's no if. Could it be that you think I'm not working hard enough? Why don't I work harder from today onwards? I didn't mean that. I think you are. You're being unreasonable. Shao Yunduan's heart softened as he gazed at her. He tenderly kissed her soft hair and spoke with a gentle smile. All right, let's just assume that I've been unreasonable and you're no longer angry, okay? Xiao Xian pursed her lips, realizing that it wouldn't be productive to dwell on negative thoughts. She wasn't ill or in any immediate danger, so why worry about the unlikely possibility of not having a child? It was important not to get stuck in a dead-end mentality. Determined, she grabbed the front of his shirt, looking at him with a mix of affection and determination. You promised not to take a concubine. I won't be swayed by any reasoning. If you can't keep that promise, I won't stay. She meant it. She was prepared to end their relationship if necessary. Shao Yunduan felt a sense of relief and nodded without hesitation. I understand. He truly did understand. He didn't dare to provoke her further. Xiao Xian's face lit up with a smile. However, Shao Yunduan sensed that he needed to address Xiao Xian's concerns about the future. He wanted to help her let go of her worries about the what-ifs. And so, he decided to put extra effort into their physical intimacy, hoping to prove to Xiao Xian that her fears were unfounded. He wanted to show her that there was no reason for her to worry about the what-if scenarios she imagined. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1068. Fruit Planting? There were even wampies and Japanese raisin trees among the assortment. Yuejing Shao's men demonstrated great professionalism. Not only were the trees planted on the mountainside, but Xiao Xian's space was also utilized. Due to the limited time, they hired numerous workers to assist with planting the fruit saplings this time. Their goal was to complete the planting within 3 days. Observing that the dragon fruits and papayas were ripe, Xiao Xian harvested some and shared them with the Xie family, the magistrate and first madam. They tasted the fruits in a nonchalant manner, appreciating their flavors with casual indifference. The flesh of the fire dragon fruit was thick, sweet and juicy. The papaya flesh was vibrant, plump, soft and sweet. These were rare and precious fruits, ensuring that they could be sold at a good price without any concerns. Moreover, these two fruits were excellent ingredients for fruit tea and dessert beverages. Their combinations allowed for innovative creations. Xianxia visited a few stores to experiment with different recipes, which invigorated and enlightened her. She came up with a few new variations. Shao helped Xianxia find several managers and assistants. This time, Xianxia and Xiaoyunduan took the opportunity to meet and interview the candidates, ensuring they made the right choices. After a thorough selection process, they settled on Steward Zhou and Steward Bai as the stewards, along with a total of 23 servants among the 3 waiters. Following that, they planned to construct a farmhouse on the flat ground at the foot of the orchard, providing accommodation for the staff. This would establish a proper industry. With Shao and First Madam's support, Xianxia felt reassured. Time was limited, so they stayed in the provincial city for 4 days before preparing to depart. If all went smoothly, they would reach the capital in early August. When they arrived in the capital, they would officially embark on Xiaoyunduan's career as an official. They approached the future with a calm mindset, taking it one step at a time. Xiaoyunduan wasn't overly fixated on becoming an official. While it would be ideal if he succeeded, he was also prepared to accept a different path if necessary. Throughout the journey, they mostly admired the scenery along the way, occasionally discussing their plans. During their overnight stays, they found time to explore and savor the local delicacies. Their journey back to the capital was remarkably smooth. They arrived in the bustling city on the 2nd day of August. The streets were filled with people, and a festive atmosphere permeated the air. The shops showcased revolving doors, hanging musical chairs, and colorful decorations, creating a vibrant and beautiful scene. Mooncakes were in abundance, and shop assistants loudly called out to attract customers. Before entering the city, Xianxia distributed red packets to the honor guards, who expressed heartfelt gratitude and bid them farewell courteously. Xianxia, Xiaoyunduan, Songshi, Lixia, and Liqiu returned to their mansion. As they opened the door and stepped inside, Xianxia and Xiaoyunduan exchanged smiles. They were back, and they couldn't help but wonder how they would feel when they had to leave the capital again. Regardless, they still looked forward to the future. Since everything had been organized before they left, the furniture was covered with dust covers. Although they were a bit late, they opened the windows to let fresh air in, removed the dust covers, and retrieved the bedrolls from the cabinet. Laying them out, the few of them swiftly tidied up the house. Tomorrow they would take their time to thoroughly clean and organize their home. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1069, Returning to the Capital. Xianxia took some time to inspect the potatoes in the backyard. They had grown remarkably well, appearing vibrant, strong, and lush. It was evident that many small potatoes had developed beneath the soil. Xianxia utilized her abilities to enhance their growth, ensuring they thrived better and remained healthier. She had also brought tomato seeds from home, which could be planted next year, although it was a bit late for this season. In addition to potatoes and tomatoes, there were cantaloupes, passion fruits, melons, figs, and more that could be planted in the backyard. The night was calm and peaceful. The following morning, Xiaoyunduan went to report at Hanlin Academy. Meanwhile, Xianxia, Lixia, and Liqiu cleaned up the yard and the house before venturing out to buy essential household items such as oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, firewood, grains, fruits, and vegetables. They even purchased mooncakes and sweet osmanthus wine, preparing for the upcoming holidays. In her spare moments, Xianxia found herself pondering about the Qiao family. Her despicable father and Madame Qiao must have returned to the capital, and her father was likely aware of the conflicts between her, Xiaoyunduan, and the Qiao family. However, he wouldn't let them off so easily. Now she would wait and see what he would do. When Xiaoyunduan arrived at Hanlin Academy, Qiao Hongxi was already aware of it. Having learned his lesson, Qiao Hongxi had become more cautious. He didn't even dare to meet Xiaoyunduan privately, fearing that he would demand an even higher price of 4,000 liang. He refrained from spreading rumors about Xianxia and Xiaoyunduan within Hanlin Academy. He had learned the consequences of shooting oneself in the foot. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was like a startled bird, frightened by the sound of a bowstring. When Xiaoyunduan returned home in the afternoon, Xianxia greeted him with a smile. They engaged in conversation for a while, and as Xianxia began cooking, Xiaoyunduan followed her into the kitchen. The meal they prepared for themselves was simple yet satisfying. They had an abundance of lentils, hairy beans, eggplants, winter melons, loofah, cabbage and white rice. The vegetables were fresh, and even in the capital, the prices for new produce were quite affordable. The capital differed from other places in terms of its livestock supply. Cows and sheep were regularly transported from the northwest, ensuring a constant availability of beef and mutton, although at a higher price. Nevertheless, they could still indulge in these meats. Xianxia sliced the beef and stir-fried it with shredded vegetables, creating a delicious and savory dish. She also prepared a dish where minced meat was stuffed between 2 winter melon slices and steamed, resulting in a light and flavorful treat. Other dishes included stir-fried cabbage with garlic, stir-fried minced meat with beans, and a refreshing loofah soup. The homemade dishes created a calm and cozy atmosphere. After having dinner together, they ventured out to shop once again. The location of their new home was ideal. It was surrounded by lively department stores and night markets, with a nearby lake that made it perfect for an after-dinner stroll. As they walked leisurely, their demeanor naturally shifted. Being husband and wife, their actions subconsciously became more intimate, although they made sure not to draw excessive attention to themselves during the night. A vendor caught their attention with a basket of carnations and sweet osmanthus branches, emitting a captivating fragrance. Xianxia couldn't resist and bought a few to bring home. Shao held the bouquet for her, examining it closely. He plucked the best pink carnation and delicately placed it on her sideburns. The beautiful flowers complimented her, making her appear even more adorable. Xianxia raised her hands and smiled, feeling a lightness in her steps. She looked at Shao and sensed a newfound buoyancy within herself. The following morning when Xianxia woke up, it was already late in the morning. Shao had already left for his duties at Hanlin Academy. Feeling a sense of tranquility and lacking any disturbances, Xianxia smiled, rolled up the blanket, and decided to return to sleep, acknowledging the need to rest her weakened body. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1070, Daily Life. Xianxia slowly awakened, realizing it was already close to noon. Liqiu and Lixia efficiently managed the household chores and even took care of purchasing vegetables. Xianxia lazily sat beneath the eaves of the east wing, casually munching on melon seeds to pass the time. As a 7th-grade editor, Shao couldn't bring a follower to work. Thus, Xianxia had nothing to occupy him after accompanying Shao to Hanlin Academy every day. Observing his idle state, Xianxia thought about starting a shop or acquiring some land for a business venture. This would provide Xianxia with tasks and responsibilities. Otherwise, he would have little to do for extended periods. However, Xianxia worried that if he had too much free time he might be influenced by others and led astray. Being a 10-year-old boy, the dazzling allure of the capital could easily overwhelm him. Given that he was one of Shao Yunduan's men, they couldn't afford to take any risks. Having made up her mind, Xianxia planned to discuss with Shao Yunduan the idea of purchasing a small shop to test the waters and determine what kind of business to undertake. Nevertheless, she didn't rely on this venture to generate income. Since Xianxia woke up late, she combined breakfast and lunch. However, her appetite was lacking at the moment. Therefore, she asked Lixia to prepare a bowl of prawns, meat slices, mushrooms and vegetables. The wheat in the northern region yielded robust grains, resulting in sturdy handmade noodles. Despite her reduced appetite, Xianxia devoured a large bowl of them. It seemed she had expended quite a bit of energy the previous day, warranting some nourishment. Unexpectedly, as she finished her hearty meal and admired the flowers and plants in the courtyard to aid digestion, a knock echoed at the courtyard door. Xianxia finally had a task to attend to. He eagerly rushed to open the door with great enthusiasm. An elderly woman accompanied by a maidservant stood at the door. She exuded a sense of dignity, but her expression held a hint of arrogance. With disdain in her eyes, she looked at Xianxia. Though inwardly irritated, Xianxia refrained from throwing a tantrum. He couldn't afford to delay matters concerning the masters. Suppressing his displeasure, he put on an obsequious smile and asked, "May I ask where you are from, madam?" The old woman snorted. "I am from the Chao family. Your madam knows who I am. Tell her to come out." Xianxia was taken aback but managed to maintain a lazy expression. Not wanting to make any mistaken moves, he replied, "Which Chao family? The one on West 6th Street in Liuji Alley?" The old woman sneered. Yes, that's the one. His smile immediately vanished as he nonchalantly said, "Very well, please wait. I will report this." He abruptly closed the courtyard door, paying no mind to the old woman's reaction or feelings. Rushing over, he informed Xiao Xian, "Madam, the Qiao family is shameless. They have come again. What should we do?" Xiao Xian smiled and replied, "Since they are here, let them in." With a clap of her hands, she turned and walked into the house. It was impossible to ignore them. Ignoring them would only fuel their persistence. Qiao Hongxi must have informed Shao Yunduan about the situation when they encountered each other at Hanlin Academy. The Qiao family had arrived swiftly. Although Xianxia had agreed to let them in, he had no intention of disregarding the old woman. He proceeded to open the door. The sudden closure of the door startled the old woman. When she saw Xianxia, she glared at him and coldly demanded, "Where is our second miss? The old master and madam specially sent me to convey their message. Yet, second miss displays such an attitude? Does she no longer value filial piety or fifth master Shao? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1071. What second miss? Xianxia felt a surge of anger upon hearing the old woman's words. He sneered and retorted, "Second miss? Who is your second miss? Are you sure you haven't mistaken the address?" The old woman stared at him unwaveringly for a moment before a smile crept onto her face, erasing her arrogant demeanor. "Our second miss bears the surname Qiao and goes by the name Xian. She's your madam. You're such a bother. Hurry up and let me in." This old woman was none other than Auntie Ling, known for her shrewdness. Moreover, she had been testing Qiao Xian just now. Finally, she understood that the Qiao family hadn't been lying. Qiao Xian truly intended to sever ties with the Qiao family. Not even the old master or madam had the authority to do so. Auntie Ling couldn't help but feel a mix of sorrow and anger for her mistress. In truth, her mistress was deeply hurt. Upon hearing that Shao Yunduan had achieved a high position as the primus and was esteemed by the emperor, and that Xiao Xian had saved the peony flower entrusted by the Empress Dowager to the emperor, her condition worsened, and she lost her appetite for several days. How could she not harbor resentment? Of course she resented her. When Xiao Xian's fiancé was poisoned, Madame Qiao couldn't bear to stand idly by and wanted to intervene. But now Xiao Xian had achieved such remarkable success. What had Madame Qiao stirred up before? It would have been better if she hadn't stirred anything up at all. That would have meant granting Xiao Xian a bright future, and Madame Qiao was fortunate not to have choked on her own blood. Now, hearing that the main household had severed all ties with them, Madame Qiao couldn't even put on airs in front of Xiao Xian anymore. Auntie Ling had personally witnessed how Xiao Xian and the others managed to afford a decent house in the capital shortly after their arrival. Although it was small, it was well maintained and situated in a good location, intensifying her distress even further. This second miss was truly flourishing. Not everyone could afford a house in the capital, even if one became an official. Auntie Ling had to admit that, with his meager official salary, Shao Yunduan wouldn't be able to afford a house in the capital for another 20 years. As Auntie Ling contemplated the rewards bestowed upon Xiao Xian and her husband by the palace, she couldn't fathom how a mere residence compared. The more she dwelled on it, the angrier she became. Her heart ached for Madame Qiao. Refusing to acknowledge that his mistress was the Qiao family's second miss, Xianxia retorted bluntly, "If you're truly from the Qiao family, then you should know that they hold nothing but disdain for our madam and have already severed all ties with her. If you're here to find someone, go ahead. But don't speak of finding the Qiao family's second miss here. If you're looking for the second miss, I'm sorry to inform you that you've come to the wrong place. I cannot allow you to enter." Auntie Ling couldn't contain her frustration and sneered, "You won't let me in? Such audacity from a mere servant. Let the neighbors be the judge of your logic." If Xianxia thought he could intimidate Auntie Ling, he clearly didn't know how long she had been by Xiao Xian and Shao Yunduan's side. With a smile, she added, "Very well, go ahead and raise your voice as loud as you can. I'll make sure my wife presents everyone with the evidence she has in black and white. Oh, and let me remind you that my wife doesn't tolerate injustice, and she just might report this to the Heavenly Mansion office to ensure they're aware of it. What do you think? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1072. Keep it short? A complaint against my fifth master's filial piety was brought before the emperor by an imperial censor, but it was swiftly dismissed by the emperor. Were you aware of that? Xianxia remarked. Auntie Ling was left speechless. She inwardly cursed the cunning girl and the sly servant. She didn't know where they found such crafty individuals. Auntie Ling dared not cause a scene. Shamelessness seemed to run in both her and the Chao family. The Chao family was undoubtedly at fault. Well, it couldn't be said that the entire Chao family was at fault, but the members of the main household were simply unaware of the wickedness of Chao Xian and Shao Yunduan. They had fallen into their trap. Auntie Ling, being resourceful, suppressed her anger and maintained a serious expression. I am here to visit your madam. Xianxia continued smiling. Why didn't you say so earlier? Auntie Ling, with Yuzan by her side, Auntie Ling entered, catching sight of Chao Xian, who greeted them with a smile. They were all friends of Madame Chao. This time Auntie Ling didn't dare to take it too seriously. She bowed to Chao Xian and Yuzan. Greetings, second miss. Chao Xian glanced at her and sneered, Second miss? Who are you calling? If you're searching for the second miss, you've come to the wrong door. Xianxia, please escort our guest out. Auntie Ling felt suffocated. It seemed that everyone in the Shao family shared the same temperament. Greetings to Mrs. Shao. Chao Xian responded curtly, Very well. Why are you here? Get to the point. Since arriving at her own residence, Auntie Ling's mood had been disrupted. She no longer had the inclination for small talk. So, Auntie Ling spoke straightforwardly, Mrs. Shao, you're aware of it, right? Third Master and Third Madam have returned to the capital, and what they did to you doesn't count. They are unaware of the truth and acting out of anger. Mrs. Shao, don't feel aggrieved. Third Master and Third Madam will provide you with an explanation. Mrs. Shao, please come back home with me. We are family and there shouldn't be such distance between us. You are the biological daughter of Third Master, and it doesn't reflect well for him to disown his own daughter and parents. Mrs. Shao, are you not afraid of being looked down upon and tarnishing your son-in-law's reputation? Chao Xian listened quietly and responded with a smile. This document bears the signatures of your Third Master's mother and 2 brothers. What's this? Your Third Master refuses to acknowledge it? That is unfilial. Don't be so shameless in front of me. I'm not falling for it. Don't you understand? If my husband hadn't achieved the position of intermediate primus and gained the emperor's favor, if I hadn't made contributions and received rewards from the emperor and the palace, would your Third Master and Third Madam have approached me for acknowledgement? Or would they have preferred to keep their distance, fearing that we would take advantage of them? When Chao Xian pointed out the truth, Auntie Ling couldn't help but feel a sense of embarrassment. What Mrs. Shao said is what? Isn't it the truth? Chao Xian's expression turned stern as she sneered. I'm extending you some courtesy, so why are you putting on airs in front of me? Go back and tell them that the slap I endured was not without consequences. Do they really want me to come back? Fine, I'll return and demand that Xiao Hongxi publicly apologize and have your old master's 2 brothers apologize to me as well. And resolve the matter with the Tian family for me too. Xiao Hongxi still owes us 4,000 liang, so tell him to pay up. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1073. Guilty? Auntie Ling grew increasingly annoyed by Chao Xian's words. Why are you doing this? Chao Xian sneered. You've already done it, so why are you suddenly afraid of me? When did you become so timid? That's not like Madame Chao. Auntie Ling was left even more speechless. Chao Xian sarcastically remarked, What did Madame Chao do back then and why did I end up in the water? Auntie Ling, do you think I know or not? Auntie Ling's expression changed. Second miss, don't spout nonsense. Madame has never harmed you. Chao Xian smiled even brighter. When did I say she harmed me? By the way, I'm starting to suspect that you're feeling guilty. I'm just angry that you let your imagination run wild and falsely accused Madame. Second miss, you're just shifting blame. Forget it. I can't force you to acknowledge it. I'll have old master and Madame personally invite you later. See if you can bear that. They're the ones who disown their own bloodline, so why can't I accept it? Chao Xian said curiously. Also, don't just focus on the benefits my husband and I have received. The Tian family is a formidable force. Have you forgotten about them? The emperor has commended and made decisions for me. I saved the emperor's peony flower, and both the emperor and the palace have praised and rewarded me. Even if the Tian family despises us to the core, they won't dare to lay a finger on us for at least a year or so. But if they find out about the Chao family, guess who the Tian family will direct their anger towards? Can you handle that? Auntie Ling's expression slightly changed. Her eyes flickered and she lowered her head in silence. Of course, the Chao family had considered this possibility, but they didn't dwell on it too much. Hearing Xiao Xian's words, Auntie Ling couldn't help but feel a tinge of fear. Xiao Xian's eyes were filled with disdain. She knew that they were all cut from the same cloth, people who only cared about their own benefits and refused to share any risks. It wouldn't be so easy to deal with them. She smiled. Go back. Don't forget that Xiao Hongxi owes us 4,000 liang. My husband and I have spent a lot of money lately, so we're in a tight spot financially. We're truly destitute, so we can't afford to be indifferent about our reputation. It just so happens that my husband is at Hanlin Academy too. When we see Xiao Hongxi, it'll be convenient to ask him about it. Apparently, Auntie Ling was aware of the 4,000 liang debt as well. She clenched her teeth and said, "You're cunning, aren't you?" "It takes one to know one," Xiao Xian replied with a smile. "I learned from the best, didn't I? How did you treat me in the past? And now you want me to be grateful? What a joke." Auntie Ling was left speechless and she departed in a sorry state. When she arrived home, she didn't want to tell Madame Chao the truth, fearing that it would aggravate her illness. However, Madame Chao was astute and didn't take the matter lightly. Auntie Ling couldn't conceal anything during the interrogation. Eventually, she couldn't bear it any longer and revealed the whole story. Madame Chao leaned against the couch, gasping for breath. "That wretched girl. I deeply regret it. Why did I let her get married? Why didn't I eliminate her?" "Madam, please lower your voice. You can't say such things." Auntie Ling's eyelids twitched as she hastily cautioned her. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1074. The money? They had made a pact to keep this information to themselves, never to be mentioned again. As long as their secret remained hidden, Xiao Xian would lack any evidence. So what if they stayed silent? Having been away from the main house for countless years, with numerous inhabitants residing there, any whispers would undoubtedly create a stir. Madame Chao's complexion grew pale, contorted with a mix of comprehension and unwillingness. Exhausted from reiterating the same point, she was repeatedly met with harsh realities. Auntie Ling strained to whisper, "The 4,000 liang." Before she could finish her sentence, Madame Chao forcefully swept away the teacups beside her, producing a loud crash. Auntie Ling flinched in surprise. "Give it to her." Madame Chao struggled to suppress the urge to vomit blood, panting with her pale face. 4,000 liang is insignificant. Do you think I cannot afford such an amount? You are truly despicable. Very well, Madame Chao. Auntie Ling replied, her heart filled with bitter irony. Indeed, 4,000 liang was no trifling sum. When the third old master and third madam returned to the capital, they discovered that the patriarch and his eldest son residing in the main mansion held disdain for them, while Madame Lady Chao remained indifferent. Whenever the third old master and third madam were absent from the capital, the first old master and second old master would grow closer to Madame Yuezhen. Yet, Madame Chao could not bear the fact that Madame Lady Chao continued to turn a blind eye, even when she sensed that the patriarch and his family had swindled them out of a substantial amount of money. Madame meticulously sorted through their belongings, leaving very little behind. Having obtained 4,000 liang to settle her young master's debts only served to deepen her sense of despair. After third madame's recovery from illness, she eagerly prepared to immerse herself in social engagements. They needed to tailor clothes, adorn them with ornaments, purchase rouge and cosmetics from the capital, exchange favors, bestow rewards and dowries upon elder miss, and acquire garments and accessories. Every aspect required money. Second miss displayed such heartlessness. How could young master have fallen for their deception? Why did they even draft that contract? Madame Chao made a firm decision. She would reclaim Xiao Xian, not because she couldn't bear to part with her, but because she needed to teach her a lesson. However, third old master, Madame Lady Chao, the patriarch, and the eldest son hesitated. Indeed, what if the Tian family grew infuriated over Chao Xian? The Chao family wouldn't be able to endure the consequences. What if they found themselves embroiled in nothing but trouble? It would be incredibly unjust. Chapter 1075. Treat? However, he couldn't guarantee that the Tian family wouldn't hold the Chao family responsible, despite his brother's assurance. In the end, he had to align with his two brothers and feign ignorance about Chao Xian and Xiao Yunduan's return. Madame Chao grew increasingly frustrated upon hearing this. However, she held no authority over the main mansion and couldn't act as she pleased. Even though she was the mistress at the Chao family's mansion in the capital, she was the most unfamiliar and powerless mistress. No one cared about her opinions. The following day, Auntie Ling returned the 4,000 liang to Chao Xian. That night, when Xiao Yunduan returned home, Chao Xian greeted him with a smile. "Let's skip dinner tonight and celebrate at a fine restaurant." Xiao Yunduan chuckled. "Darling, you have excellent taste. We've stumbled upon a windfall and we should celebrate." Thus, the two of them, accompanied by Li Xia, Li Qiu, and Xianxia, headed to a pavilion renowned for its roasted whole lamb and bullhead meat. They had a splendid time, spending 200 liang without feeling like they had splurged. After all, the money was acquired effortlessly. Chao Xian astutely understood that the Chao family had chosen not to respond to Auntie Ling's visit. With a hint of disdain, she remarked to Xiao Yunduan, "Darling, the Tian family remains silent whenever we mention them. They have unknowingly done us a tremendous favor." Xiao Yunduan smiled, intentionally avoiding any mention of the Tian family. He had no intention of bringing up the Tian family. After pondering for a moment, he spoke slowly, "However, they can't have everything their way. I should treat Xiao Hongxi and his colleagues from the Hanlin Academy to a meal." Xiao Xian blinked, perplexed by Xiao Yunduan's words. "What do you mean?" Xiao Yunduan smiled, turning to Xiao Xian, whose eyes glistened with excitement. She beamed, "Darling, you know how to treat your colleagues to a lavish feast. Let's go to an even better restaurant without worrying about saving money. We can't possibly spend all 4,000 liang." Xiao Yunduan laughed. "Darling, you're absolutely right. Indeed, 4,000 liang was far more than Xiao Hongxi could handle. It would surely make him feel overwhelmed." The next day, Xiao Yunduan courteously informed his colleagues and selected members of the Hanlin Academy about his plan to treat them to a meal. He invited over 20 individuals and reserved a large private room, spacious enough to accommodate 2 tables. Xiao Yunduan chose Xianxia Restaurant, an upscale establishment in the intermediate range. A sumptuous banquet at a single table cost around 100 liang, excluding drinks. Most of the Hanlin students were financially strapped, unable to afford meat on a daily basis. Chapter 1076. Sigh. Indeed, it was a lavish feast costing 100 liang. The 18 dishes served were all exquisite, including succulent roasted lamb chops, tender hibiscus chicken slices, flavorful shredded pork with Beijing sauce, delightful fourjoy balls, savory braised mutton, stir-fried fish slices, richly braised pork knuckles, and indulgent fried belly with oil. Furthermore, Xiao Yunduan displayed great generosity, offering a fine selection of wines. The dishes were presented one by one, and Xiao Yunduan smiled, exchanging a few polite words with his guests. They all raised their glasses in gratitude and eagerly began savoring the delicacies. As scholars, they maintained an elegant dining etiquette, yet they wasted no time in savoring each delectable bite. Regardless of their refinement, after spending years in the intermediate office of the Hanlin Academy, one could maintain an air of elegance and detachment as long as their family had the means to support them. Most of them had endured arduous lives, and when given the opportunity to enjoy a high-class banquet, they wouldn't decline in the name of preserving their reputation. Midway through the feast, when everyone had nearly finished their meal, Xiao Yunduan stood up and offered a toast to each individual. As the host and a newcomer, it was customary for him to express his respects through toasting. The guests regarded him as a congenial person, humble and respectful towards his seniors. It was a commendable quality. Xiao Yunduan also extended an invitation to Xiao Hongxi to join the banquet. Xiao Hongxi initially harbored anger, but the thought of the 4,000 liang left a bitter taste whenever he encountered Xiao Yunduan. He had no desire to dine with him at all. However, if he chose to abstain, he would appear petty. Additionally, considering the sum of 4,000 liang had been taken from him, it would be a waste not to attend. Hence, Xiao Hongxi begrudgingly attended. In response, Xiao Yunduan showed him due respect. "Brother Xiao, please join us." Xiao Yunduan clinked glasses with him and sighed with emotion. "Before Madam Lady Xiao, old master, and the eldest son severed ties with us, we were still in-laws. Brother Xiao, you are my brother-in-law. Though we may not be related by blood, that is the extent of our connection." "Oh yes, I've heard that Brother Xiao's parents have returned to the capital. How are they doing?" "The Xiao family no longer wishes to accept my wife, and Brother Xiao's parents are no longer my father-in-law and mother-in-law. My wife and I will no longer trouble you. We simply wish you good health." The words hung in the air, catching everyone off guard as they realized the implications. Xiao Hongxi was equally taken aback. What? He knew his family desired Xiao Yunduan and Xiao Xian's return, but they had made it clear they didn't want to comply. However, a sense of unease began to creep over him. He couldn't simply offer a welcoming response. His family had warned him against getting close to them, fearing it might anger the Tian family. Yet, he couldn't agree with Xiao Yunduan either, or he would be unable to reverse the situation. Before he could formulate a reply, Xiao Yunduan let out another sigh, gently patting Xiao Hongxi's shoulder with a smile. "Let's drop this topic. It's for the best. We are all safe and sound." They all forced smiles, raising their glasses in an attempt to shift the focus away from the uncomfortable conversation. "Yes, there's no need to dwell on that. Let's drink. Cheers." Editor Shao knows how to lighten the mood. "Come, let's have another toast." Due to censorship concerns, news of the incident spread discreetly. The Qiao family looked down upon Xiao Xian and Xiao Yunduan, and before Xiao Yunduan achieved the rank of intermediate advanced scholar, they had visited Xiao Xian at the doorstep, only to be met with a violent rebuff, resulting in the dissolution of the engagement. However, since the emperor did not hold Xiao Yunduan accountable for being unfilial, no one dared to spread rumors that might incite his wrath. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know reports so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Phantom Sword Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.